I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Supervisor Kowal.
Here.
Treasurer Roman.
Here.
Clerk Noble here. Trustee Ruggles.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Voorhees.
Present.
Trustee Powell.
Here. Full house. Thank you very much. I'm going to bring an item to the agenda. We are going to walk on a labor agreement that was just put together. We're going to walk it on as 10-1. It'll be the first item this evening as we walk that on. With that, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Next item, item 5, public comment. If you have something that you would like to share with the board, you'll have 3 minutes at the microphone. You will have to identify yourself for the recorder. So at this time, I will choose you as you come up. You may come up.
Good evening. My name is Laura Malcheski. I'm here this evening to talk about a problem our subdivision, which is Pinecrest Shores, is having with flooding due to a retention pond issue from an adjoining subdivision, Pinecrest Meadows. I have brought with me copies of the August 5th, 1992 consent judgment between the Chartered Township of White Lake and Woodcraft Homes Incorporated, the developer of the Pinecrest Meadows subdivision. I know that the township is aware of several of the severe flooding issues we've had in our sub, but I'm not sure that the problem of the retention pond has been addressed. The flooding is getting worse every year and has now resulted in permanent damage to our main subdivision road. The overabundance of water, which freezes during the winter, has caused the road to buckle in 3 separate areas that flow directly from the retention pond. I believe the consent judgment I have provided, which I'll give to the trustees and the attorney, clearly states that the retention pond shall be maintained and whose responsibility that is. I look forward to having this issue included in the agenda of the next board meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, how about that? Okay.
Did somebody like it?
I didn't get one.
I'm sorry.
You skipped me.
I
I feel left out.
We can share. We can share.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll get a
share.
copy,
We'll
though.
save some paper. Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Seeing none, I will close public comment when we move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda is a list of revenue, expenses, bills, department reports, police, fire, community development, and treasurer. Gives a month-to-month breakdown as to what is going on and where things went. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion for.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 7, minutes A and B. Minutes A of the special board meeting of May 9th, 2022, and the regular board meeting of May 17th, 2022. Questions, comments from any of the board members?
Mr. Supervisor?
I would be disappointed.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I didn't find anything in the May 9th minutes, but on the May 17th minutes, I got almost through the entire section, and I called the clerk's office today, and our deputy clerk was out of the office today, but on page 19, and it's important enough that I think that it needs to be corrected. Page 19, third paragraph down under trustee comments, starts with Director O'Neill. Second line starts with year. It goes and says, he feels that they picked a level so that it won't be an emergent situation. It really should read an emergency situation, not an emergent.
You concur, Mr. O'Neill?
Sure.
Okay. So noted. Still seeking a motion.
Otherwise, Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of the minutes of the special board meeting on May 9th and the approval of the regular board meetings of May 17th as presented and now as corrected.
Very good. We have a motion looking for support?
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Carry on. Next item, item 8A, is a public hearing to hear public comment on the water system improvements, the 2023 Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, DWSRF, which will be presented by our township engineer, Mr. Mike Lufkin. At this time, when we go into public comment, the board and its members will remain mute until such time we come out of the public comment. And at this time, I am making a motion to go into public comment for the hearing on the DWSRF project plan.
Public hearing.
Public hearing, thank you. I'm making a motion. I have a motion, I have support, and therefore roll call vote?
Supervisor Kowa,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith,
Yes.
and Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Very good. We are now in public comment, of which we will have some information that will come forth by our engineering firm, DLZ.
Just wanted to give Mr. Potter an
I want to
opportunity
slip
to,
that microphone up. You're a little bit on the high side.
problem, just wanted to give Mr. Potter an opportunity to give an introduction if he so desires.
Yeah, so a couple months ago, we came to the board with a project plan proposal for an opportunity to get some water projects from our capital improvement plan into the queue for some possible funding from the America's Water Infrastructure Act. So this tonight is part of the requirements of that project plan through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And our engineer, Mr. Lufkin, has a presentation tonight that will go over some of the projects that we've identified, and we'll open up that for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Yep, as discussed or mentioned, we sat down with the township back in January, talking about some potential funding mechanisms to achieve some projects, plus hopefully some potential principal forgiveness if we should qualify. We came to the board with a proposal for putting this plan together. The way the state is routing the money right now, it's all through these state revolving fund programs, and we'll get into what that is, similar to last board meeting when we discussed this on the sanitary side. But again, the projects that we've identified in this plan were brought to us by the township and included in the report. So I do have with me Kyle Gall, an engineer from our Waterford office, and Shannon Filarecki, our division manager out of our Waterford office as well. So if we got any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. I'm going to turn it over to Kyle for the presentation, and then we can answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you. So to start off, we'll just go over what exactly the DWSRF program is. It stands for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. It's Michigan's program for low-interest loan financing that assists communities with the construction of needed drinking water infrastructure improvements. It was established in 1996 as an amendment to the State Safe Drinking Water Act. So each fiscal year, Congress authorizes an amount to be appropriated that's then allocated amongst the states. This year, $256 million was available for the, fiscal year 2023 projects. This money can be used to improve drinking water treatment, fix leaking and old water mains, improve sources of water supplies, replace or construct finished water storage tanks, and other infrastructure projects needed to protect public health. As part of this program, there are certain requirements with this public hearing that we have to go over. So those include a description of the drinking water infrastructure and the alternatives that we looked at, a description of the recommended alternative with the costs, a discussion of the project financing, and a discussion of the social and environmental impacts as well as the mitigation of these impacts. So the projects that we have identified as the township's water system needs include iron removal and general upgrades to the Twin Lakes 1 well house. This is going to increase the water quality. A completion of a second emergency connection to Waterford Township's water system. This one is going to be located across from Hess Hathaway Park, and it's going to add redundancy and reliability in emergency situations. And then a water main extension from Bogey Lake Road to Union Lake Road, which is going to connect the previous DWSRF project of adding that water main down to the Huron Valley Schools over to Union Lake Road. And that's going to add redundancy and reliability throughout the system. Now, I don't know how well you can see, but here's a map of the pressure districts and the water system throughout the township. Now, I don't know how easy it is to see, but if you can see, if you know approximately where Fisk Farm is, that's where, and we'll get a closer map as well, where the Twin Lakes 1 well house is off Highland Road. And as you can see right now, we've got a big chunk of the water main that's over on the west side that's not connected. So that's why we're looking at adding in some extra water main for that redundancy so that we don't have a split system should there be a break. Yeah, good. So here's a closer look. So you can see where that Twin Lakes 1 well house is. So that's M59 across there, and we're basically right across the street from Fisk Farm. The second emergency connection, like I previously mentioned, that's going to be across the street from Hess Hathaway, and that's something that's already been thought of, and they've already even put in a casing for that future connection. As well as I mentioned, that extension of water main. It's a little hard to see on this map, but on the west side, you can see maybe a lighter blue line. That's where that water main that's currently being constructed as part of a DWSRF program is ending, and then it comes over along Cedar Island to Union Lake Road. So there's certain alternatives that we have to look at as part of the program. The first one is just no action, which is pretty self-explanatory. The no action is you do absolutely nothing to make improvements. The second option is an optimum performance of the existing facilities. So that's taking those existing facilities, also kind of self-explanatory, run them to optimum performance, which is what the township currently operates at. So this wouldn't really be a change to the system. The third alternative is looking at regional alternatives. So the regional alternatives that we identified would be connecting to the Great Lakes Water Authority system, connecting to Genesee County system, creating a water authority with Independence Township and Waterford Township, and installing water main on Elizabeth Lake Road to Union Lake Road instead of doing the Cedar Island. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of the costs on a later slide, but basically the GLEWA system and the Genesee County system, those alternatives are much more costly, as I'll go into. As far as creating a water authority with Independence Township and Waterford Township, there's still improvements that need to be made between these systems that would have to be realized before that could become an actuality. And actually that plan, some of the items that we've identified in this project plan are items that would work towards that. However, to just make that switch now is beyond the scope of this project. And then we also looked at that alternate route for the water main. However, it doesn't complete the same goals of eliminating a dead end at the Huron Valley Schools and completely looping in the system. So for that reason, we are choosing that improvement of system, which is the projects that I just had outlined on the last slide. So the project overview for that alternative. It's going to provide upgrades to the supply high-quality water to the new and existing customers with adequate flows and pressures. It's going to have that second emergency connection, which provides reliability and redundancy in case of system failure. And it's going to have the additional water main from Union Lake to Bogey Lake, which adds reliability and redundancy, as well as I mentioned, eliminates the long dead end that runs to the Huron Valley School campus. So I know this one's a little bit hard to see. My apologies, especially because everything comes into the notes. But this is where we were looking at the estimated construction budget. So looking at the no action, that note one is that it doesn't cost anything because the whole point is you're not doing anything new to the system. Similarly, with the optimum performance, because that's what the township is already functioning at, there's no additional cost to it. And then with those regional alternatives that I mentioned, the Great Lakes Water Authority, that would be approximately a $70 million project. And for Genesee County, even greater at $161 million. And then the proposed cost that we identified for the improvement of the system is about $7.9 million. Now, with that $7.9 million construction cost that we identified, our total SRF loan budget we're looking at is about $9.5 million, because that also has to include then the design, construction, administration, which includes things like inspection, this project plan in itself, and then legal services, financial bond counseling. So the interest rate savings, White Lake will be requesting the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy low interest funding at an estimated 1.875% interest rate. The state tries to keep that around 2%. There's no guarantee what exactly it'll be. We used 1.875 as that was the previous year's amount, but they try to keep it around 2%. This gives us an annual principal and interest payment of $574,000, which will be funded, my apologies on there, through the operation and maintenance budget, unrestricted water fund balance, and capital charges. Right now, we've estimated the bond market option at about 4%. With how the market is, that might actually be a little bit low right now, but using that 1.875% for the SRF loan and 4% for the market, you're looking at an annual savings of about $125,000. Now, this graph just shows what that savings will be over a 20-year period. So what your savings will be over that, and obviously since interest compounds, you can see that as it goes on, you save more. So the total interest saving would be about $2.5 million for the project based on the difference in the loans. Now, we also had to, of course, look at the social and environmental impacts of these projects. So we're looking at slight traffic impacts at the specific project sites. Now, for the Twin Lakes One Well House, that's going to be all on-site work, so there's going to be, except for setup and everything, there's not going to be really any traffic impacts. With the emergency connection, once again, because we've got that casing, we're looking at very minimal impacts. The biggest one is going to be that new water main, but once again, it's something that we will minimize the impacts and everything will be restored to its original condition or better. We also had to look at the adverse environmental impacts, and there's a number of species that are considered endangered or threatened within this general area. However, all of our projects are outside of their natural environments, and we're not in any of the protected areas. So it was determined that there's going to be no adverse environmental effects. And then right now, there's no proposed rate increase associated with this. And I should clarify, currently the township is functioning with a 5% per year water rate increase. There's no additional rate increase at this time above that, and that's scheduled out through 2026. And when the township, my understanding, Director Potter, is when the township analyzes that water rate, that they account into it the capital improvement CIP projects that have been identified, which these items that we've talked about doing are things that have been already identified in those CIP plans. So these projects are something that were already looked at when we did the last rate increase. And then my understanding is that look at the rate increase every 3 to 5 years, so it'll be coming up in the next year or two to start reanalyzing.
Correct.
So you can get an idea of what kind of schedule we're looking at, and these are not hard deadlines, these are approximations. So for January 2023, we would have the submittal of the draft plans and specifications. March 2023 would be the environmental assessment, submittal of permit applications, and final submittal of plans and specifications. April 2023 would be when this actual project plan is fully approved, and the Eagle would approve the plans and specifications, and then we'll get the submittal of contractor bids. Looking at then August 2023 to be able to start construction and have that completed by October 2024. Thank you, Board. Any questions?
Anyone from the public have a question on this particular project at this time? Seeing none, we'll return to the podium.
Are you closing the public hearing?
No, no. Is there anything else that you care to add at this time? Gentlemen, does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, that concludes the presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions from the board if anybody has.
Well, I need to close the public hearing.
Yep.
I am making a motion at this time to close the public hearing for the DWRF fund request.
I'll support that.
Have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is now closed. Now we're going to open this up to the board with general questions. Any of the board members have a question at this time? Mr. Roman?
Hey, guys, does this Eagle interest rate, does it move, or is it, do you guys know, is it typically fixed for the year, or what do you know about this Eagle interest rate?
It's a fixed interest rate once you sign the loan. So it's not a variable interest rate loan.
Fixed.
It's fixed. They try to get you in around 2%, but we've seen them at 1.875. We've seen them at exactly 2%. So the rate can vary, but it's not variable.
So it's not moving up with the rest of the markets? Thanks, guys.
You know, fortunately, the state has had some wisdom. Some money has been set aside for water projects. As we all know, Michigan has infamous projects throughout our state that have caused some notoriety, and there's been other things that have happened in our state with groundwater contamination, things of that sort. So the state has really taken great strides to move forward and be as proactive as they can. When this opportunity came before our DPS director, Mr. Potter, and myself, and this board, it made the best sense because our system currently is not a loop system. And just that, it's just a continuous circle. Currently, we have, if we ever were to have a catastrophic failure of a sort, there could be a certain amount of the population that could go without water until that is remedied. And also, the water quality is always better when the water is constantly moving. So in a circulatory manner, the water quality will be better. We will be prepared for an inevitable break at some point in time. As they always build anything, it'll break at some point in time. And then the improvement of an additional iron filtration facility at our Twin Lakes plant will now put the township at a very high capacity of improved water. And so that nasty red line that your sprinkler puts across the side of your house or does to you, any part of your plumbing that you see from time to time. And it represents a significant long-term savings to our water system. Iron beats the bejeebers out of everything that it touches. So if we can pull it, as much of it out as we can and have that water moving, we'll have a much higher quality. It will add longevity to our system. it will add longevity to the plumbing systems in the homes that we service. And I believe that the redundancy of that is probably really paramount, and that's been a little pet project of mine for a number of years. So, any other questions? Mr.
I have
Wellman?
one more. Aaron, when we did the last water rate study, I believe we included these costs in there. Do you remember?
We did include the cost of several years of the capital improvement program.
Okay, that's what I thought,
Into the
yep.
rate study, yes.
Good. I'm set.
We tried to think ahead as much as we could. Mr. Ruggles?
I have a question. So, what exactly are you hoping to achieve? Just to get this low interest? Is that all of it, or you talked about some kind of a principal match?
So we talked about possible principal forgiveness. We talked about some of the federal money that's been pumped into infrastructure. And the way they're funneling that is through these SRF programs. It gives the state a way to compare projects, rank them against each other, and then pick the ones that are most beneficial, if you will, for funding and debt forgiveness. So we're trying to get in the queue, get the projects ranked, and hopefully fall in a favorable position where we could possibly get not only the loan, but potentially some principal forgiveness. Now, there's a limited pot of money, and there's a lot of interest, obviously. Not interest, and then, as in, but there's a lot of people that are going after it. That's what I'm getting at, so. Yes, sir.
Mr. Noble?
That's the best case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? 800,000 seems kind of a bit high on that. What's the worst case scenario if we don't get that?
If you don't get
Just explain to Trustee Ruggles.
If you don't get the funding?
Yeah.
Yeah, well
Through
then,
that.
if you don't, well, so worst case scenario is we don't fall favorably on the project priority list, and then you're not going to get funded in this round. Putting the project plan together and submitting it to Eagle, we'll keep it on the list for at least 2 years. I think we can reapply. It might require a small little update, and I believe it's up to 5 years this project plan will stay valid. So you can stay in the cycle for potential future funding if it doesn't get approved this year. But I guess that would be the worst. We move forward and they say no, so.
You know, the opportunity to receive a low interest rate, as we all know, is extremely important to this board. And the upside of this is that there's a very strong possibility with the way that money has been dealt on infrastructure projects that a portion of this, a good portion of this loan could be potentially forgivable, which means that debt to the township would just go away. So I don't want to say it's free money because it's never free money. It's coming out of somebody's pocket at the end of the day. But it's a chance for us to apply for funding that is out there for just this type of project. And White Lake Township is just as worthy as any other community. So it'll make a huge improvement. It will also have an impact on all of our residents within 1,000 feet of that line with their home insurance or homeowner's fire insurance, because there now be a fire hydrant within that large swath, so it'll make a considerable difference in that premium, and we'll also, benefit from that. So any other questions or comments at this time?
I have just one.
Yes, Trustee Smith?
Not a money question, so we'll switch gears here. And you touched upon it, but if you just have anything else to elaborate, I'm just curious. My question was the route that you chose, Cedar Island versus Elizabeth Lake. Does that have any effect on residents that served or anything else? You chose it primarily because of the school, but anything else that you can touch upon that it would be different? Or
Well, and Director Potter can comment a little bit too, but I know one of the primary goals was, we're looking at that Huron Valley School campus, and there's quite a length of water main coming down to it that it's about to be built. It's a single feed point, potential failure, and it's a large campus to be without water with the single feed. So one of the primary objectives and goals of the DWRF project is to increase water systems redundancy and reliability. So trying to keep that paramount, trying to increase the reliability of the water system to make that connection. I don't know, Mr. Potter, if you got any other details you want to share on that route?
Yes. Correct. That is the primary reason why we chose that route. Elizabeth Lake Road, while it is a shorter route and would be less expensive, it is possible to connect our southern and our northern districts with the Elizabeth Lake Road route. That does not solve any of the, the consequence of failure issues that you have on the Bogey Lake Road main or on the M59 main westward from the corner down here. There's several sections of M59 that are just one singular 16-inch main. So if we were to have a failure in those areas, we could have a potentially high consequence of failure, which would be, possibly water outages, so on and so forth. So that Cedar Island route, while it is longer, picks up more areas and solves all those issues with those long dead-end sections.
Okay, I was just curious, because population's probably a little bit higher around the Elizabeth Lake route, and do you happen to know, like, is the cost saving significant, or it washes itself out because the other route solves more, if that makes sense?
I haven't really looked at it like that, but the Cedar Island route actually does have a greater population in the areas around Farnsworth and around Lake Road.
Okay, yeah.
So I think the population question is kind of
Probably
maybe
close.
pretty close.
Yeah.
But really, it's about eliminating those long dead ends.
Okay.
I did want to follow up too on the question about the, what is the worst that could happen? Really, the worst that could happen here is that we have to look for alternative funding for these projects, and that we maybe don't get some of this debt forgiveness that's out there. Currently, the preliminary rankings, like Mike said, there's a lot of people going after these projects, and there's a lot of cities out there that have a lot of lead services and things like that, those projects are going to be ranked very high. So we don't really know where we're going to be ranked yet. Best case scenario, we would get ranked and maybe qualify for some debt forgiveness. I guess Midland results would be we get ranked for funding through this and get a great low interest rate on a 20-year loan or a 30-year loan. Worst case scenario, we have to seek alternative funding methods to fund these projects. So there's really no lose here. We don't have, a great deal of money invested in these project plans. So, for us to get these in the queue, it's kind of a win-win.
And it solves a big technical problem. That's one of the paramounts of this. Dead ends with water mains historically get to be problematic and get to be expensive. Problematic in the point that when the main sits idle, you get the buildup, and there's a degradation of the treatment of the water, and expensive as if we have to have manpower go out there and bleed the hydrants on a regular basis, and that's water that just, from an environmental standpoint, is just wasted. So that's not, the best thing to do. So, any other questions from the board?
Just a quick one. So a water main on Cedar Island Road, would it dead end on the west side at Bogey Lake Road, where the school is?
It would tie in.
No, it wouldn't,
Would tie
it
in.
wouldn't dead end. The idea is to connect to the infrastructure that'll be built this summer at the school campus.
That answers my question.
Yeah, it ties into the school.
Ties into the school.
And then it goes down Cedar Island, goes through there, and then comes up, kind of like, not exactly, but I'll say Round Lake Road, potentially, and then up near Farnsworth, near St. Pat's School, somewhere in that, I'm just kind of generalizing, in that general area. And then that gives us that contiguous loop for that particular
Yep,
area.
makes sense.
So it would service all of Round Lake Road?
Pardon?
It would service all of Round Lake Road, or just up to
I would
it?
say everything from Cedar Island north to Farnsworth, or to Hutchinson, rather, and then over to past Farnsworth, and then back over to Union Lake Road.
So at this point, we have a preliminary route map essentially. The engineering has not been done yet. That's outside the scope of this project, but, so we do have opportunities to look at all of those areas a lot closer when we get to that point.
What would be your fee be to manage the project?
We put an estimated fee in the plan based on a percentage of the construction costs. It was just a conceptual number for budget purposes right now. It was on slide 13. I don't know if you want to go there, Sean.
Can you see that bar? I can't see that bar.
That just represents about 10% of the construction costs estimated right now.
How much is that, Mike?
We got a construction budget of $7,972,000 and a construction administration cost of $797,000.
That's construction, administration, engineering, and inspection.
Correct.
And that's on a project that's going to last well over a year.
10%.
Yeah.
According to the schedule.
It'll take a long time to get constructed.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Powell?
One of the downsides is that it appears that the design costs for the entire project has to be paid for before we even know if we get the loan. So the township is on the hook for about $700,000 on the design of the project. What was just quoted was contract administration. After it's been awarded, that's when those figures would jump in. So really, the actual number is $640,000 design and $800,000 in construction. So we're really looking at about $1.4 million to the engineering company is what's estimated right now.
Actually, Mike, Mr. Powell,
Yes.
so we'll be submitting this project plan in the next few days, and we will find out if we are ranked before we move forward with design and bidding or any of that.
Okay, that's good to know. Based upon what was presented tonight, it wasn't going to be approved until April of next year. And so that's why I pointed that out.
The project priority list generally comes out end of August, September timeframe. That's when we'll know where you rank and if we're going to get funded in this round.
Then we can the board will make a decision whether we want to go forward at that point in time.
All right.
We're not
so-
committed to any funding at this point.
So we aren't, okay, we aren't committed to the design.
No, yeah, there's no request in this resolution for any funding if you read through it.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. The drop in pressure between the west side and it looks like pressure zone number 2 is where we'd be tying into. Which zone is higher? And is there a PRV between those two that's going to allow continuous flow between the two?
Yeah, I mean, we would have to analyze that. There are PRVs within the system. We're talking about tying in Pressure District 5 with, I believe it's Pressure District 2, Director Potter?
Right.
That's correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'd need to do a hydraulic analysis on what would be required to
Okay.
move water through
It
there.
hasn't gotten to that point yet, so right now, what we're trying to do is just to see if we can get in the queue for this particular funding. That's really the only intent of this at this point in time.
We do have currently 12 pressure reducing valves between District 1 and District 2.
Between 1 and 2? Oh, well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that pressure over there is just like,
Yeah. The other question I had, I noticed in your analysis for the surrounding areas, you had the tie-in to Independence and Waterford as a potential, and really a real one, because we're going to be doing that anyway. Was Commerce Township looked at at all? Because they have water main down at Bogey Lake Road and Cooley Lake Road. Didn't know if that was looked at.
you want to buy Gleeville water? Come on.
Just ask the question.
I'd like to answer that question. So we looked at that when we did our water rate study for our Bogey Lake Road water main extension.
Right.
And if you remember correctly, I presented a chart of 15 or so different communities and their water rates compared to White Lake Township's water rates.
Yes.
Commerce Township's water rates, they do have a connection there, and they are on the very end of the Detroit water system. And incidentally, White Lake and Waterford Township, were in the Detroit Water System's 20th year of their 20-year cap plan for future extension. When we looked at the cost of the extension, it was very similar to the cost of the Bogey Lake Road extension. But then when we offset that with the additional increase in the cost of Gliwa water versus our water rates over the 20-year period, we blew that plan out of the water by going with our own water.
Okay, I was just, it wasn't presented as an option, and I just thought I'd get that out there. Thank you, Director Potter.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for your time today. We appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next item, 9A. 9A is a Resolution 22-023. That is a resolution adopting a final project plan for drinking water system improvements and designated an authorized project representative. I will make that in the form of a motion to adopt resolution number 22-023 as described. Looking for support.
I will support that.
I have motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, again. First order of new business, we are adding 10-1, the POAM tentative agreement. Catherine?
Well, I'm pleased to present the 4-year agreement with POAM. This was just ratified Monday. This group represents our patrol officers, our records clerks, and our dispatchers. There were a couple amendments made to the previous copy that you saw last week. You'll see with this, the wages are consistent with the other union groups that were ratified, which includes a 3%, 2.5%, 3%, and then a 2.5% in 2025. So this 4-year agreement will run from 2022 to 2025. The dispatch pay scale has been added. This is a new wage scale. We hope that this will make our dispatchers more competitive with our local communities in order to both retain them and be competitive with other communities. The work week schedule that's outlined is basically the same schedule that our patrol officers and dispatchers have been following for several years. We've just now implemented it into the union contract. So there's a lot of language there, but it's basically what we have been doing, but more formalized in the CBA. There are some benefits that have been added and modified. They are very consistent with the other groups. These include 2 new healthcare plans, a short-term disability plan, a long-term disability plan. There's a sick leave sellback incentive. Those are all either the same or very consistent with the other collective bargaining agreements. In addition, there's a 2% matching on the 457, and this is for employees that are only in the Tier 2 pension plan, so employees that were hired after 2011.
It's very consistent to what came before us before with
Exactly, it is the same.
those other amendments.
Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. The shift premium is outlined. That's slightly changed. The shift premium, because of the 12-hour shifts, will be from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. only, and it'll be a flat 6%. That's about it. We're pleased with the agreement. We think our patrol officers are as well. Again, we hope this is competitive. We feel it's very competitive with our local communities.
Thank you. Any questions from the board at this time? We all did have an opportunity to see this prior to these minor tweaks.
Just one quick question on
Question, Andrea?
I'm sorry. On the dispatch pay, so the people that have just been hired, will they be brought up to, like, if they've been here for 6 months, will they be brought up to the 6-month wage?
So depending on when they were hired, they could be. It does depend on their experience as well.
Okay.
So the letter of agreement that's at the back of the contract does give the police chief latitude, so that if we're bringing in a dispatcher with experience from another community, they may have 2 years of dispatch experience.
Okay.
That would be his prerogative to bring them in at the 2-year wage scale.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. So seeing as this is before you, we're looking to approve this agreement and authorize the supervisor to sign, which I already I signed it already because they asked me to sign it before they signed it, so. But we're just looking to authorize the agreement, approve it. Looking for a motion?
I'd like to thank Kathy and Brandon, our labor attorney, for handling this. It's been a long process, not a short process, but handling multiple contracts over the last several months. Nice job. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the tentative agreement with the White Lake Township Police Officers of Michigan agreement.
Support.
A motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in this, myself also, and to let the public know that for a period of time when I first became supervisor, these contracts were all over the place, and by that I mean they were expiring at all these weird times. So it seemed like the labor attorney should have had an office at the end of the hall, because I saw him all the time. I was like, why is he here? Well, the constant. So it was the plan of myself and HR to ultimately get all these so they would all sort of sync together as close as possible, so it would make it easier for us to deal with all the different facets of it. So again, thanks everyone for that, and thank you board members for ratification. We have 10A, first reading, 1392 South Williams Lake rezoning request. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, board. Tonight before you is a request to rezone approximately 2.5 acres on Williams Lake Road from agricultural to RM1, which is attached single family. This matter was at the Planning Commission for a public hearing on May 19th, at which time the Planning Commission recommended approval. I will acquaint you with this site. Mr. Ruggles will be familiar with it. Okay, so I'll back out. Here is Union Lake Road, Cooley Lake Road, Williams Lake Road, and everyone's familiar with where the Weatherstone condominium project is. Coincidentally, when the developers of Weatherstone, which is also zoned RM1, were moving through the process probably in 2003-ish, they were very much interested in picking this piece of property up, but the lady who lived there was not interested in selling it. They told me at the time, well, she's like almost 90, we'll wait her out. And they've been long gone, and I think she lived to be like 100 or 101, so the joke was on them. But anyway, they stubbed the road off here with the anticipation of maybe looping it through. It didn't happen, but now the property is being sold. The applicant, Justin Jundy, who I believe is here tonight, wishes to pick this piece of property up and rezone it to RM1, which, again, is what Weatherstone is zoned. Let me go back to the letter here. We ask every applicant who's rezoning a piece of property, even if it's not a PD or PB, to give us just a simple schematic. What you have in your packet, what the public has seen, is just their best effort of a conceptual plan showing a 16-unit building kind of in the center of that property. I don't know that the road commission would give them 2 curb cuts, but this is not completely out of line with the density. It's probably going to be somewhere in the range of 14 to 16 units an acre with a 6 to 8 unit an acre density net for an RM1 zoning. So this, because it's on a border of another community, must go to Oakland County. A couple of weeks ago, and you'll see it in your packet, the coordinating zoning committee held a hearing and reviewed this request, and they too recommended approval and felt that it was in line with the master plan, which is really consistent with what the Planning Commission's findings were as well. There were several neighbors who were there at that meeting and are probably here tonight who are curious about this. There were 2 issues that came up. One was traffic. You'll see in our review letter that at the time we didn't have the traffic study back, and it was a concern of ours. Subsequently, we received the traffic review back, or I should say traffic study back. DLZ did the traffic study or reviewed the traffic study and found that there would not be a significant increase in trips per day on this site to the extent that it would cause an issue, a traffic issue. So really, the additional traffic from these units would be insignificant. And the other issue that they were concerned about was the impact on their road system and their storm drainage system. Those of you who are familiar with this area are probably aware that these neighbors spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a couple of years ago completely redoing the road system. And they're private roads, and they look very nice, and they don't want any new development connecting to them. And I assured them that the only way that could happen would be is if their HOA was to come in, I guess, come into an agreement with this new developer to share in the road system. And that would be a private matter and not something that the township's interested in pushing or would be pushing. And their storm system would be separate as well. So those were some of the concerns that some of the neighbors had. Let's see. This is the first reading. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them for you. But primarily, this is very much in line with the master plan. And again, if you picture kind of where this is, and I'll bring it up again, the Weatherstone property kind of comes to a point here. It goes all the way out to Williams Lake Road. So this property is surrounded on three sides by Weatherstone, which is identically zoned RM1. So at the staff level, and at the planning commission level, and at the county level, we felt that it was a very appropriate request. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone on the board have a question at this time? Mr. Powell.
Certainly, I would remind the board that agricultural zoning in this area is just a holding pattern, which means it was never intended to stay agricultural. So now the question is, what's the best use for this? And the master plan certainly does represent that RM1 is proper for this area. I guess I had a question of staff, just because the site plan isn't included in what's going on today, just a first reading of the rezoning, but we are going to get a review of a future site plan, correct?
Absolutely. This, again, is a conceptual plan that every applicant with just a straightforward standard rezoning's asked to submit. But when it, if it were successfully able to progress through this rezoning request and they were to come in with a site plan, it would have a lot more detail than what we're looking at tonight. And it would go both to the planning commission and township board for preliminary, as any other project would. And then the planning commission would deal with final site plan approval on a project of this type.
So just a couple things that just jump out at me. First off, just to kiss off the possibility of them tying into an existing road system, I don't think that that's proper. I think we ought to at least have them approach Weatherstone and offer to assist in maintenance on any of the pavement that they might use, because that southern drive is within 30, 40 feet of an existing dead-end drive off of the main entrance. And it doesn't make any sense at all to have another access drive off of Williams Lake Road there when that could be used. And so at least some effort should be made to come up with some agreement between the two HOAs. Also, I would certainly like it better if in the plan that is brought before the board next time, if the setback between Williams Lake Road and the building could be made as a major issue instead of all the open space being put behind the building. That might be something staff can work with the applicant about as well.
Absolutely.
Any questions at this time? Okay, it is an appropriate rezoning. It does not result in a spot zoning. It's consistent for what's going on there in that area. It is only a 2.48 acre parcel, and it is an area that is well traveled. There is a long-term pipe dream, I'll call it, of the Road Commission of Oakland County to do further improvements on Williams Lake Road, of which we are continually trying to work with them, get them to see what our needs are in this area and in the township of Waterford. So it's moving in the right direction. Hopefully that will alleviate that. The density there won't be that high. I don't think that it's being problematic. Any other comments, Mr. O'Neill?
I have nothing further.
Okay. That being said, yes, Mr. Ruggles.
You looking for a motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
Is there one from the public that wants to speak on it?
Is there anybody that has a comment or question on this at this time? Moving right along, Mr. Ruggles.
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of the rezoning request at 1392 South Williams Lake Road, parcel number 12-36-467-002, currently zoned agricultural, to be rezoned RM1, the parcel consisting of 2.5 acres.
I will support that.
I think, Scott, I think you said parcel 467, it's 476.
476, sorry.
I will support that amended. We have motion support. All in favor to move on to second reading?
Aye.
Thank you. A lot of paper, Sean, for one little piece of land, I'll tell you.
That's why I use a computer.
I know, but I have to put notes.
I know, all I do.
Grinder Station Contingency Dispute 9533 Steep Howell. Mr. Potter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So on April 11th, we installed a grinder station at 9533 Steep Hollow Drive. That grinder station installation on that particular site, there was a septic tank underneath the driveway on that site. The homeowner who's here tonight and is going to speak on his behalf, Mr. Robert Ross, worked out a change order with C&E to avoid having to remove part of the driveway to essentially extend the existing pipe that came into that septic tank through the septic tank, cored through the septic tank and extended that through, and then they abandoned the septic tank in place with a flowable fill material. This resulted in an excess of a $725 charge, which was paid for out of the contingency on the escrow. Mr. Ross disputes the charge and, in fact, I think is, I'm going to let Mr. Ross state his claim. I did reach out to Greg on this. Greg from C&E says that it took his crew about an hour and a half to excavate and tunnel to the septic tank, break a hole in the side of the concrete with a concrete drill and a sledgehammer, and run the 4-inch pipe into the tank, reaching into the tank to line up the pipe to the existing stub inside of the far side of the septic tank and backfill. He says his crew charges $800 per crew hour. The actual cost of this would be $1,200 for this work. He charged Mr. Ross $725. They apparently worked this out between the two of them the day before the installation. I didn't find out about the dispute until well after. So I guess, Mr. Ross, would you like to step up to the microphone and speak on your behalf?
You have to identify yourself for the record.
May I ask a question first, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Aaron, the drawing is a little bit confusing. Could you please, before Mr. Ross speaks, it appears that it was originally designed to not impact the driveway at all, especially if the tank was going to be filled instead of collapsed. Is the driveway not configured as the drawing shows? Is there concrete where the original location of the Barnes station was going to be? If you scroll down and see the site plan itself.
Can you pull that up on Google Earth?
Page 149.
Yeah, it's page 149.
Yeah. Well, he's got in the front of his house, I believe this is correct, landscaping on the corner of the house by the grinder panel.
Yes.
Landscaping, he had a deck, walk up to the door area and then the concrete driveway. So the plan that they worked out was to avoid excavating any of that and to abandon the septic tank in place. Then rather than having to dig under the driveway, then they would, like I say, extend that pipe through the tank. It's my understanding that the pipe did not come out where it showed on the plan. But again,
So
I
where was,
wasn't on the job site, so I don't know the details to that.
so maybe, Mr. Ross, you don't know where the grinder pump was actually installed then?
I do know where the grinder pump was
Could you
installed.
tell me where the grinder pump was actually installed?
The grinder pump was installed just where it showed on the plan set.
Okay, but the plan set showed the grinder pump between the driveway and the
On the other
house,
side of the driveway.
right? And it was going to connect into the line coming from the house, and you're saying that line coming from the house is not as shown on this plan. It was
That was my
further
understanding.
into the site.
That was my understanding.
So in order to prevent from having to disturb the property between the house and the septic tank
And the concrete driveway.
and the concrete driveway, so it's still a little confusing because the pipe for where's the existing septic field at? Do you know?
I do not.
All right, I guess I'll wait for those questions to the owner because he's going to certainly set us straight. So, thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
You can identify yourself for the recorder, please.
Yes, Robert Ross, 9533 Steep Howell Drive. Okay, and good afternoon, everybody. The reason I'm here is a dispute over the grinder station contingency, which was withheld. Now, to help, I didn't know we could bring flimsy or whatever, but I have a few copies of a picture that would really help that you see what is actually there as I go through it. So could I pass out some?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I wish I had more. I understand 4 or 5 people will be here, but.
That's okay, we'll share.
We can all share one.
Thank you.
Houses.
Okay. I'm going to quote right from C&E Construction Company, their invoice number, which is 2682. Under line item, contingency, construction contingency charge, tunnel driveway and cut hole in existing septic tank / place 4 pipe through septic tank and gluing onto 4 Schedule 40 PVC pipe in tank. Okay, and there's a charge of $750. Okay, that's stating 3 items that had to be done. Number 1, tunneling the driveway. The driveway was not tunneled whatsoever. As that picture will show you, it's a straight line from the grinder pump that is in there to the manhole in the driveway. The driveway is now out of question. It's not even part of the route. There's no sign whatsoever of grass or nothing being tore up the tunnel. It was not tunneled. Under 2, cut hole in existing septic tank. Was actually using an electric jackhammer, and which was already trenched out, that had to be trenched out to put in the grinder pump up to the septic tank. Okay, they took electric jackhammer, and being it was just making access hole to put the pipe through, it didn't have to be real critical. It didn't have to be round, square, oblong. It was demolished. Any way to give you the work in there, and in doing so, there's no cleanup of debris or whatsoever. Jackhammer, knocked down what concrete you had inside the septic tank and left it. Part of the job was to backfill that anyway. So it's just bang, knock it down, no dimensions or nothing, and that's exactly what happened. The third thing, placing 4-inch pipe and guide onto 4-inch 40 PVC pipe from house. This had to be done regardless. Whether the driveway was there or not, you had to connect the pipe to the house where it come out. That's kind of a given. All right? So through all that, the only real addition I seen to the project, and I never left the project for over 8 hours, was opening this 3x3 access hole to pass the pipe through to connect to the existing pipe coming out of the house. Doing it in that manner, it actually saved them a few cuts and a lot of digging, because they would have had to dig up to the house. Now they didn't. Now they had the use of an abandoned septic tank. Nobody got in the septic tank. That didn't have to be done. All right? So the only change to the whole thing was knocking this 3x3 hole in the wall. And I'm getting a bill for $750, and I have a hard time understanding this. So that's my position right now, and I'm welcome for any questions.
If they had an alternative, if they could not have gone through the side of the tank, they would have had to remove that tank, which in turn would have tore up your driveway extensively. So,
When they
correct?
come and looked at it, and it was either that Friday or Saturday prior, for some reason it's showing a shadow on that picture where the porch is, and it was cutting out a 1-foot section so they could get down there to put that in. It would be saw cutting 12, maybe no more than 24 inches, parallel with that porch and going in through there. Septic tank removal, never considered. Driveway, complete removal, never considered. The worst scenario was saw cutting, and I guess a 6-inch slab for the, 6-inch slab for the driveway. We'll saw cutting that and going there. And if you done that, you'd have to cut the line in a couple places, fit it in. This way, one guy on the outside, one guy worked through the manhole, they lined it up, shoved it in, and that portion of the job, it took no time at all. It's a lot easier.
I will tell you that had to be saw cut and you'd had to have concrete work done to do that.
No doubt, I'm looking at 5,000-10,000.
Yes. So you frankly got away cheap, okay?
I did, but
And
that's the way it is.
it's fortunate that they didn't have to disrupt that. And it's allowed to
There's
be
no
laid
doubt
in
about it,
place.
but that was my ideal to,
Yeah.
I told the operators when they come either that Friday or Saturday, hey, let's rethink this. There's got to be a better way. So why don't we just go through this septic tank? We're going to abandon it anyway. So we're just using our heads. That's all it was. Any project I do, if I can do it more economically, that's the way I'm going to do it.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So-
Any questions from the board?
I was just
Andrea
curious.
Voorhees.
Sorry, Andrea.
No, you're good. Why wasn't your first call to the township to talk to the director of Public Works?
To tell you the truth, I never give that a thought. They come out that Friday and Saturday. Basically, I had nothing to do with the contractor or the design whatsoever. The township was my representative for that entire project. When they left me Saturday or Friday, whichever it was,
Yeah.
I was happy, they were happy. We got a better way to do this. That's why I never called the township.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Roman?
Yes,
I
sir.
was just curious, when you talked to the construction crew about this change, did you guys discuss whether or not there'd be an additional fee for it?
Yes, we did. He said that with what we were doing, it should be very, very minimal.
That's it, but you didn't discuss dollars?
I want to say he said less than 100. I will not swear to that.
Did you get anything in writing from them?
From them? No, I never seen nothing from them in writing.
Did you ask for anything in writing from them as far as the change?
I didn't see no reason to, so no, I didn't.
Well, this is why. This is why you try to get it in writing.
But yeah, okay. There's,
Mr. Powell?
I totally understand where you're coming from. I have stood in this kind of position and kind of talked between the homeowner and the contractor several times, specifically this contractor as well. Anytime that they must connect into and through a septic tank, It is, and you can well imagine, even though you don't have to get down in the tank's just been pumped out, and the odors from a septic tank, you're still dealing with it. It hasn't been washed out or anything, so your head is down in a septic tank because your pipe sticks into the septic tank by about 6 inches, the one coming from your house, and they have to connect to that. So somehow their head is down in there, and in the meantime, they have had to drill a hole in the side of your septic tank in order to slide their pipe through. It is, you might think it looked easy. That's because I'm not as young as I used to be. They work very, very hard at doing this. And so I have watched them do what you've described several times. Ideally, they want to connect to that pipe before your septic tank. And then it's relatively easy in a flower bed or something like that. And then they just fill the septic tank, and it's a fairly simple process. And that appears to be what was designed originally. But evidently, and I'm just speculating, they could not get to your pipe coming out of your house without saw cutting your concrete, which is never an easy job. Also, and it never really goes back the way you have it now. My personal opinion is that the contractor earned his money. I really believe that you did get off with lower than what you could have. I appreciate your position as well, because you were there watching. But on second thought, you weren't doing the work. You were hiring someone else to do the work because you would not have wanted your head to go down in a septic tank and beat the side of a septic tank open.
I don't think legally I could have, or could I have quoted it myself?
And I understand, that's why we hire contractors. I could no longer do that work myself. So I understand your concern. C&E has come down in what their actual prices are because they know that they work with people. They're very personal people. They care about people and the job they do. This is a very, very neat project that they did. They didn't disturb your concrete. So I'm fairly impressed, but my vote's going to be a no, and I wanted you to know why.
I hear you, but I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I stood there and watched, and what was actually added to the job was less than 20 minutes work. Okay? They're already on site. All right? And if you go to different manuals and so forth and try and get an estimate, they're way off. Their estimate's $2 to $6 a square foot to break out a 3-inch concrete wall. You know, this is just taking a jackhammer and knocking it down. You didn't have to be between any lines or anything, just knock it down. 20 minutes, and it didn't take that.
Okay, any other? Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So, Mr. Ross, I certainly empathize with the position that you're in, and I understand your concerns. But what I see here is on the signature page, it specifically says that any dollar amount exceeding the estimated installation cost shall be assessed to the property owner and payable within the time period set forth by the Charter Township of White Lake. So, sir, unfortunately, you signed that prior to this project starting with the understanding that you would be responsible for any dollar amount exceeding the estimate. So
that would have to be a reasonable amount. I mean,
but a contract goes by the written word, so you did sign that. And then my question for council is, Lisa, do we have any policy that addresses this, or maybe we need to formulate policy when a resident has taken it upon themselves to make a change after the fact?
That's why we have a contingency.
Yeah, we don't have a policy, but we take a contingency to cover any changes that have to happen in the field.
Right, I understand, and it's also my understanding this is the first time that we've had a resident dispute the contingency cost. So maybe we need to take a look at that in the future to address that in policy.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
I just had a
Mr.
comment. Mr. Ross, I know you said that you saw them out there for about 20 minutes, I think you said,
That's
actually
correct.
doing the physical work.
That's
Is
correct.
it possible that they needed some more time to actually plan out and cut pieces and/or parts to construct the 20 minutes in addition to the 20 minutes?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Can I ask our resident engineer the same question? Is it possible that they would have needed some additional time to either plan out this change and/or size parts for this rerouting?
Which engineer are you asking?
Well,
Mr. Powell?
yes, well,
You got your resident engineer.
Mr.
Right
Powell?
over there.
Yeah, and to Mr. Lufkin even.
sure, let's let Mr. Lufkin, because his company would have inspected this afterwards, so.
Did you want me to repeat the question, Mike? or-
You can, yeah, please.
No, I'm just curious, in addition to the actual doing of the work, this change order, was there some planning that went into it as well that took some time?
Presumably, again, they came to it sounds like there was an agreement made before the day of install that I wasn't privy to know, or even to be able to track time on this or anything like that. When we come out to do inspections, we're looking for certain items, and those items are usually unit price, so we're not tracking time, contractor time on projects like that. These are, did they make the tap? Did they install the station? Those are unit price items, so presumably there's some extra work. Again, it was nothing that we were able to watch or even aware of, so.
Okay,
But we probably need to add some, back to my policy.
that's something
We
for
probably need
another
to add something.
discussion.
Can I
Right, in
make
the
a
future
comment?
to this document so that residents don't get, this doesn't happen again, where they're not making changes without Mr. Potter, Mr. DLZ or somebody knowing,
Mr. Potter, care to comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that. So we do have contingency on all grinder station installations. That is always $3,500 in contingency. So, and in this case, $2,775 of the contingency was returned after the project. So this additional cost did come out of the contingency. I just want to point out that in these kind of cases, I don't typically, in a lot of these, I don't require a call from Greg to me every time he makes a minor change, or if he works out something with a homeowner to achieve what the homeowner wants out of this. They have to live there, it's their house, it's their property. If Greg can, make a small change to the plan that makes the end product better. I mean, when you look at this photo, this is a fantastic installation.
That's
I mean, you can
surgical.
barely tell that he's even done any work there. And this was only a few weeks ago. I'd also like to comment that this is the first time I've had a contingency dispute in 6 years of working with C&E. We've installed 25 grinder stations already this year since we purchased those stations,
I was just going to ask it.
just this year
If there
alone.
were any previous disputes.
No.
We have not.
Is this how a dispute gets handled every time, then we would see the person that's contesting the?
Honestly, I've never had a dispute, so this is the best that I could think up. I wanted to give Mr. Ross his fair opportunity. I think I stated in my memo that, I don't think it's warranted, but, I wanted to give Mr. Ross his fair opportunity to speak with you folks. Just doing underground work myself for, a number of years in Waterford Township, I don't think you're going to get inside that grinder station and do that work in 20 minutes. Sometimes time flies when you're having fun, and, I just don't know that I agree with that took 20 minutes. Our contractor certainly did not agree. My position is that, our Greg has done a great job for all of our residents that we've installed, and that's all I can say about that. So, as I wasn't privy to this, I wanted Mr. Ross to, have his opportunity to speak to you.
All right. Anything else from the board? Any last comment? Because once I'm done with you, you're done.
No.
Okay, because I got to keep moving.
Sure, I understand.
I just like to make.
Okay,
Real quick.
the only additional thing they did was actually knock this hole in the side of the septic tank. They would have had to hook up the 4-inch line, whether it went through the septic tank or on the side where, if you had to tear up the driveway. That still had to be done, it shouldn't be in there. The big dollar item is tunnel driveway. Never happened. That's the big dollar, okay? Second of all, I look at this site plan that I guess the contractors were given to from DLZ. Well, the line from the house is in the wrong spot, and I had the young guy down in the basement and showed him where it was, so I don't know how we got that wrong, but that's okay. But this here's the site plan for them to work on, all right? This here's their blueprint, their Bible for that job. The only dimension on this is existing sewer line plus or minus 9 feet. Who had have an engineering degree with a plus or minus 9-foot dimension?
These particular projects are not Swiss watch projects, and there are oftentimes a lot of variables. There's oftentimes we have scenarios where things are supposed to be in a spot, and we get outside and they're not. So this is just a general conceptual idea of where the tank goes, and it's not considered, gospel. And in the defense of it, I did underground work.
The grinder line.
I did underground work for a while, and there were very seldom were things where they were supposed to be. So it was just a matter of always trying to find it. I do need to move this along, so you have stated your case, and I am moving forward. Any other questions? Last comments from the board? Mr. Roman.
Comment, Mr. Ross, I would have sided with you if you would have gotten a change dollar amount in writing, but because you didn't, I have to go with it.
I went on the internet like anybody here can go on the internet and look.
I know.
Look it up, and it's $2 to $6 like I mentioned before. That comes to $54. Even if they would have doubled that and charged me $100, I wouldn't be here right now. All I want is something reasonable.
Yeah, they wrote it as their hourly rate for a crew that's on site. And if the process is not moving along, that's part of the cost. And if it delays it, that's also part of the cost. So that is why we do the contingencies, sir.
Well,
Okay.
in reality, it didn't delay that project whatsoever. Zero.
Okay. Please be seated.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I am looking for a motion to consider the reimbursement of the $750. I am making that in a motion to consider. I'm looking for support to consider.
Can you be clear in your motion, reimburse whom?
For reimbursement, okay? To consider the $750 reimbursement. That's what the motion is for, okay? Looking for support.
Well, it's on the agenda, so we're considering it. Why don't we make a motion?
I am making the motion.
Oh, you said to consider.
I said, making the motion to consider the $750 reimbursement, as stated.
To give him the 70.
Correct.
Oh, to grant.
Correct. Looking for support.
Support.
Okay. Now I will go for a vote. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell.
No.
Trustee Ruggles.
No.
Trustee Smith.
No?
Trustee Voorhees.
No.
Treasurer Roman.
No.
Supervisor Kowal.
No.
Clerk Noble, no.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you coming forward.
Yes, thank you.
We want, but you have to understand, we put a lot of trust in these contractors, and if you're the only one in a long period of time, there may have been a little disconnect, and unfortunately, you didn't get something in writing at that time as to Mr. Roman's wisdom there, so thank you. Okay, next item. Request Utilities Ordinance Variance, Section 38-355 North Shore Condos. Mr. Potter.
Yes, so North Shore Condos, which is just west of Cole's property, and there's 80 units in North Shore Condos. is requesting a variance. They have two wells on the site. It's a private water system. I believe it is a type 1 water system, which would be regulated by the state because of the number of units full-time. They have two wells on the site, and apparently one of them has broken down. Under our ordinance, sections 38, 354, sections B, C, and D, as well as section 8 of the master deed. Their master deed identifies that should their wells fail, they will connect to township water. They would be required to connect to township water. They did pay close to $60,000, approximately $60,000 into the M59 West water main that was placed across their frontage in 2005. Part of that contract, there was also 8-inch water main stubbed up Village Drive for a future connection to this site as part of that project. The owners of the, the president of the Condo Association, I believe, is here tonight requesting a variance. What they would like to do is replace their well existing on the site with a new well. The state has granted them a permit to drill a test well. He's got a letter here that he's provided me, and I did meet with these folks. They're suggesting a financial hardship and basically a timeline issue that they're afraid that if they lose this second well, then they're going to have an emergency public health issue. So I believe these folks are here tonight to speak, so I will, I'm not going to speak on their behalf. I just will be available to answer any questions should the board have this. I did include the ordinance in question, as well as the ordinance section 355 in the package that specifically grants the board authority to vary the previous ordinances 353 and 354. There are a list of criteria that would be considered here to grant this variance. So at this time, I guess if the owners would step up to the podium and make your case. This is Mr. Shaba, Jerry Shaba, he's president of North Shore Condominiums.
State your name and address for the recorder.
Jerry Shaba, 970 Village Drive.
Okay. Floor is yours.
Okay, so we were working on a well, repairing it. That's a type 1 system, which requires 2 wells to have a backup with each other. One of them went down, we were repairing it, we weren't able to repair, so we had to abandon it. And so we only have one well right now to work with, and if that fails for any reason, maintenance, repair, or parts, we will be out of water. And my understanding in speaking with Mr. Potter, it takes, well, he didn't say, but my understanding it'll take probably close to a year to be able to connect to White Lake water system between the engineering and contracting and planning. So we cannot afford to, wait a whole year to connect using only one well. And it's, with Eagle, it's not really valid or legal to be able to just continue to use only one well water, one well system, because we don't have any backup at all. So they understood the problem, and within weeks they, gave us the permit to drill and approved it, and White Lake Township refused, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, I noticed in your letter, you're making quite a few assumptions. You're assuming that it's $10,000 per unit. You're assuming that it takes a year, and which I will tell you that you will find this township will work for you as expeditiously as humanly possible in the event to remedy the situation. Your property has a stub. It was stubbed in originally and was part of this particular plan for water to come into that facility. Any other well failure that we have had throughout the community that has water within its property line or at its property line has been required to hook up. If you want something that's going to be consistent, reliable, and probably in the end of the day, more cost-effective, you should hook up to the township water. You have a scenario there that you're going to have to put in. I'm going to guess that's going to be an 8-inch well. I'm guessing.
It is.
That's correct.
Building that size? Okay, that complex?
2 8-inch wells.
So that's
doing one.
very expensive. You could be looking at $60,000 just for a well, okay? And that's if you don't have any problems, okay? So that money would be much better spent towards putting in a permanent solution to your problem and also meeting what the original intention was. I think for that to have hydrants. I have been told that your hydrants are not reliable for fire protection and that our fire chief has been instructed, our staff, the fire staff, not to use those in the event of an emergency. So this was before this well problem happened. So it seems to me that you need to get hooked up to the system. And that way your residents there may have an additional cost, but it's going to be to their benefit and also the community's benefit to have them on the water. And again, it was part of the original plan that was submitted to that property. And when you purchased that property or when that was formed, that was all should have been all part of the due diligence, realizing that you would have to hook up to public utilities, water and or sewer should you have failure. So I really sympathize and empathize with you, but you've made a lot of presumptions here and you don't have any facts. I mean, you don't have an engineer's report that shows what the cost would be. I would have been very expeditious in getting someone out there to find out what these estimated costs are and then proceed. And we would, if you came in there with this, we would move this thing along like marching ants to get it done so that we can make it happen, and we still will. But you need to do your due diligence on behalf of the association and come forward to the township with that information.
Okay, so Mr. Potter said it takes about a month for the White Lake Township to review the...
You get us the information and we will try to expedite this as quickly as we can, and Mr. Potter would be the best one to answer that question.
And then Eagle, approximately 5 to 6 months before they can get back to us. And I'm not sure if that's what I was told.
It really depends on the project. If you have an emergency, that's going to be a different review period. If it's not an emergency and this was a typical development, then right now Eagle is taking, up to and around 150 days for a review. This would be considered an emergency.
Okay, and that's not counting engineering, contracting, planning the whole project. So when I'm assuming a year, I'm not really exaggerating, or, according to the time that I've received from Mr. Potter and other contractors, and it is at least a year, or if not even a year, say call it 8 months. So now I'm in a dilemma with waiting a whole 8 months to connect and have 81 residents at risk if one of the last well I have fails. And to me, that's drastic. I mean, who is going to bear responsibility for all those
I understand,
residents?
but I can also give you the Kobayashi Maru, which is the other no-win scenario. You get this new well in, the other well quits. So now you're back to the same square, and you'd be coming back to the township again with the same request. This is what I'm saying. This may be a little more of a rocky road to get down and through, but I would make post haste, and we will do everything we can within our power to move this along as expeditiously as possible.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
And I want to make sure that you know that I'm not the township engineer. Just to put it on the record, I'm the engineer that designed your septic system. Okay. All right? So I'm familiar with the area. My analysis is that extending the water main up to his well site is probably in the $30,000 range. So he's right in the same ballpark or less than installing your well. Also, and I'm going to yield to Mr. Potter in that you don't need a DEQ permit, an Eagle permit to extend a private water main. This is a building lead. Hear me out here. It can be evaluated and defined as a building lead coming up to a private water service, so the whole thing is private, going all the way up to connect your buildings in. It eliminates Eagle from the process altogether. So that process can go forward, all the plumbing can be done. If a hydrant is put on that line, then it could be considered a public main because you have a public water service to the fire department there. However, quite frankly, a T can be put on that line for a future installation of a fire hydrant to be able to get the emergency taken care of. Then this township can apply to have that private lead defined as public after the fact to allow a hydrant to be put on. Now, that means that our engineer and our building department and our DPW, our DPS department must inspect as though it's a public main, so all that documentation's there. But this, quite frankly, can be done in an emergency scenario through the township and back into if a hydrant's needed. So I'm going to leave, as Mr. Potter knows, I sometimes think outside the box, and but that's a possibility. I've done it many, many times.
Very good. Mr. Potter?
Yeah, just to remind everybody that these are, both our system and their system are Eagle-regulated Type 1 systems. You can't make any modifications to source water on a Type 1 system without a permit from Eagle. These will have to go through Eagle.
I know the Type 1 well system does, but you might want to touch base with the building department because I believe our plumbing ordinance officer can issue a plumbing permit. But we need to follow the law, and that's the way you need to follow there. But there are ways around that 5-month timeline or even a 60-day timeline.
I would highly recommend it.
Because I'm in total agreements with the supervisor. The right thing to do is to connect to water, despite the fact that you would like to get around our ordinance.
A couple of things. We have 4 fire hydrants on site that you're implying to. We already have them in place, so this would be something that the White Lake would connect directly to their system or through our system.
I think your engineer would work with our DPS because I believe that they would be left off. As Supervisor told you, our fire department's been told they can't use those fire hydrants now anyway. But if the piping is evaluated and we take care of your emergency situation, I believe a future connection to those would certainly be benefited by the extension from the White Lake water supply system.
We have 2 hydrants already installed on
Out front?
the frontage of this property.
Along the frontage?
One is already installed on the 8-inch stub coming into the property. We also have 2 additional hydrants to the east that are stubbed towards this property from the Coles property.
So we have adequate protection, as the chief put to me, but he said he just instructed, he didn't want one of our staff to go there and rely on one and have a false sense of security, so they should be bagged. I hope if they're not bagged, they should be.
Yeah, again, they're Type 1 water system, so they're still functional. They just don't have the supply and the pressure that our system has.
Therefore, they should be bagged.
I can't do it, but I don't have jurisdiction over it, but
I've got some questions.
they know which ones to get onto.
Are you good?
I'm good,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Noble?
What year did you buy the property?
2012.
2012. Did you do any due diligence on that you'd eventually have to tie into our system?
It was with the receiver through a bank, and we didn't have the option to do due diligence in regards to that.
So you went in blind, not knowing that then?
Not
correct?
blind, but we had, we did enough investigation, looked at the property, we had.
So it's fair to say you
contractors,
took a
but
chance on it, right?
I mean, when it comes to this section of the situation, possibly, yes.
So that's a yes, correct?
Yeah, I would say us taking a chance on not knowing that we have to connect.
Now you know you have to connect, that's fair to say too, right?
Well, that's why I'm here asking for the variance. I mean, Eagle accepted it, and if you guys don't, what are my options?
Yeah.
If you guys say no, then what are my options?
Your action is to hire an engineer and get somebody out there tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and start doing your due diligence to figure out what it's going to take to remedy this. Approach our DPS director with a plan of attack. We'll coordinate with our engineer, and we will jump all over this thing to move this thing through. If I have to hand walk that down to Lansing myself, I'll do it, okay? So we're very responsive in scenarios like this.
I
So
appreciate
we are here to serve you,
I appreciate
although you
that.
may not feel in this particular case we are.
No, I'm sure you are.
Yeah, so, but again, like I said, you put the new well in, 6 months, 8 months, a year later, you come back to the board, the other well went up. We're right back to the same square. Eliminate the problem. Done.
And we want to help you.
Yeah.
You took a chance by going in blind, like you stated earlier. Now we want to help you, and we'll expedite it.
But these wells are not for a year or two. They've been in service for over 40, 50 years.
Yeah,
and
which
they've been functioning
means
fine.
they're, yeah. Yeah,
But to
so,
be clear, we have to have the proper information to do so.
Yeah.
And that's the missing piece here.
yeah.
Regarding stubbing it to the well house, this is a condominium with separate parcel ID numbers, so we would have to do separate meters per unit because some residents are living one person, then it's hard to try to bill residents.
Are they separately metered now?
Utilities, yes.
The water is separately
Not
metered?
water, no.
There'd
The
be no
utilities
reason to
are.
change it. That should just be part of your annual association costs, okay? If you choose to separately meter them, that's a whole separate issue and item of plumbing mechanism hookup. That's strictly an in-house distribution. If you're trying to convert it over to individual meters, that's strictly your own prerogative. That's no bearing on what we would be doing and/or if you put a well in.
Would not recommend doing that from a cost perspective.
No, it'd be cost prohibitive.
It would be
That's
a lot-
what I
lot
kinda
more
was
cost
leading to
effective
because-
master meter the property and include that in, it may include some amendment to your deed that describes that as common element. And you'll,
So who would bear responsibility? The association? Collecting that bill? Basically, or
Who's
paying the
collecting the
bill?
bill for the water, the new well?
No, we're talking
Yeah,
future,
same thing.
future cost.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Mr. Roman?
Question for Mr. Potter. I'm looking at the requirements in our ordinance as to when you would have to hook up to water. And it says within 90 days after the date of mailing or posting of written notice by the township or the county health division that a health hazard exists due to the failure of an existing well system, due to well failure, soil conditions, or for any other reason. So is this considered a two-well system?
this is a two-well system.
Is considered a two-well system.
That is, they're not 100% failed. They just are in a precarious position.
They're out of
They have
compliance
lost
because they
all
don't have
reliability,
backup.
and they're out of compliance with their type 1 requirements with Eagle.
So a health hazard does exist.
Like,
Yes, a
potentially.
potential health hazard does exist.
Okay?
That's precisely why, when I met with Mr. Shaba, that, our first correspondence was, you are going to need to, connect. Then we later met about a week later and discussed some cost items. At that time, I think I was looking to see some kind of engineer's estimate soon from you. I do also understand that, what you're trying to do is make sure that your residents don't have a potential loss of water, which is commendable. I agree if your wells are 50 years old. I mean, we're overhauling our municipal wells approximately every 10 years. How you guys are paying for that would probably be the same mechanism. My recommendation would be to master meter the site You could also put a master backflow preventer on the site, which would save you a considerable amount of money, and connect to the existing main that's stubbed there. Our connection costs to the township and the cost of the meter are going to be somewhere around $20,000. But I haven't seen any estimates from your engineer, as far as where the nearest point in your system is that we could connect to. I was very unclear on the drawing that I was provided. I was not able to find drawings in our own records of this site, and it's my understanding that this property did have quite a few owners over the years. Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult for us to make an estimate on a financial crisis when we really don't have any numbers to compare.
Okay, that being said, I would like to turn this now to the board. You can be seated, sir. Okay. So before us, we have a consideration to request, what was that?
Consideration to grant a variance.
Yes, thank you. Consideration to grant a variance on section 38-355 North Shore Condos. I will make that in a form of a motion looking for support.
I don't understand your motion.
My motion is to grant the variance for the ordinance section 38-355 North Shore Condos. I'm making that in the form of a motion.
I'll support that.
Okay, we have motion and we have support. Roll call vote.
And just to remind the board that positive vote is to grant the variance.
So we, correct. Mr.
Roll call. Roll call vote. Trustee Powell.
No.
Trustee Voorhees.
No.
Trustee Smith.
No.
Clerk Noble, no. Trustee Ruggles.
No.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
No. You need to contact an engineer as soon as possible and start this process. Mr. Potter will do everything he possibly can to assist you in any way, shape, or form, cut through any red tape we possibly can, and expedite this. All right? Thank you, sir. Request to approve purchase of bulk sanitary grinder stations. Aaron, we just can't get you off the floor.
Oh, you're not even close to being done with me. We're going to be here a while. As I stated previously this evening, we have sold 25 of our last 34 grinder stations. Costs have gone up a little bit, actually about 25% from the last time since we ordered these under our last bulk order. We did look at some alternative options to see if there was any opportunity for the cost to come down. And we looked at pumps from Environment One as well as from Keene. And believe it or not, Kennedy still has the best price. And we are really happy with these pumps. So we have Holbert under construction now. Oak Ridge Park will hopefully be under construction in the next couple of weeks. And Eagles Landing is still, is actually constructing their utilities now. So we feel like we have a need to re-up on these stations. I'd like to, if we see fit, order 35 additional stations, not to exceed $147,490 from Kennedy Industries.
Aaron, where'd you come up with 35, and is that enough? I think your number might be low.
I just started looking at the order that we had previous. The way they quoted this to me, it actually is the same price per each if we ordered 25 or 34. We looked at it as in last order we did was right at 100,000. So we looked at it as how many could we get for another 100,000? And then we also looked at what would it cost for our identical order from the last time. We really could order any number of these at this price.
What's your
There
lead
was
time?
there
you
was no
think?
cost break. They're about 12 weeks.
12 weeks?
Yeah.
You sure 35 is enough?
Let me piggyback on what you just said. As you know, I just placed a truckload order for E1 pumps.
Yep.
26 weeks out. So
22, over 2 years.
26
6
weeks,
My
half
bad.
a year.
Okay, 9 months.
So if you're at all hesitant and you have a place to store these are great. As you know, I like these grinder pumps. Boy, I'd get them now because it's only going to get worse right now as I see it.
If the board chooses to, approve a greater amount, then I'm not going to balk at that. I don't have, research right now on the numbers, but I'd be certainly willing to, work with the treasurer and look at, what we maybe could spare out of our fund and get some stations. We have a lot of space to store them.
Okay.
I have a quick question to ask you. I know
Yes, sir.
we don't necessarily have anything in the pipe, although there may be. Do you think you might want to order 1 or 2 duplexes just to have in the event that we need them versus, because we don't, that.
Yeah, the issue with the duplexes is typically, they're kind of site-specific, and,
Okay.
they're very site-specific, and they're only really used for commercial properties, so,
I'm just concerned about potential,
yeah. I don't have a
Yeah.
price from them on a bulk duplex order
Well,
of any
yeah,
kind.
a perfect case in point is like the Walgreens down there when that's commercial and they failed and
Yeah.
it took forever to get them hooked up.
The reason
Interesting
why
going
we're,
to Porta-John outside of Walgreens.
yeah. The reason why we're able to order these, and we've kind of standardized the stations that we order. Instead of ordering a bunch of different sizes and then potentially sitting on one for 3 or 4 years. I had an 84-inch station that we sat on for well over 2 years. All I'm ordering now are 72-inch stations, and I stock 3 different size extensions so that we can fit those in any application up to 96 inches. And then we also, they're all 50-foot direct burial cable. We ordered a 100-foot direct burial kit that we keep in stock. So again, then just with a simple swap out of parts, we can install something pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, I was just calling that to talk because of the simple fact that with the 59 corridor.
What I can do is, I can reach out to them and maybe meet with some folks at Kennedy, discuss how we could stock some standardized duplex stations, and then maybe see if there's some pricing, maybe bring that back to the board for the next meeting.
That's all.
I know we spoke about it, we got to get these, who are the other vendors that you spoke with? And I don't see their quotes in here.
We spoke with Environment One. Those prices were about $5,500 per station. I understand Mike and his folks have worked out a reduction on that.
And we included White Lake Township into that, and, but their price is still $100 more station than what you have here. So it's still, your quote is still the best quote.
The issue with installing Environment One pumps is that they run in a different pressure range than our pumps. So in areas where we already have Barnes pumps installed, or if the hydraulic gradient won't allow any one pump to work, then, we're kind of locked into those pumps. The other company was Keene, which is a fairly new company, and they were in at 4222. They had 2 different station options, 4222 and 4308. The issue with that is if we start to go with another different pump manufacturer, then we have this issue with core and parts with Oakland County. We've been using Barnes pumps for well over 20 years, or around 20 years, as long as the system's been in existence. And Oakland County has parts for our pumps on all of their trucks and, in all of their warehouses. So it's going to take a lot to get me to agree to switch pump brands because of that. And
It's only because you're stubborn.
$20 savings on a station is not going to be it.
No, and under the current situation where we have had so many issues with so many different things, garage door ordered February 14th, arrives June 4th.
Yeah.
Garage door, okay? So when you have technical items that are out there, I don't want someone to have a problem, and the county does our service, we do not. So therefore, using their particular pump makes the best sense and the best protection for our residents.
Yeah, we definitely need to have pumps and parts in hand.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Moving this along.
Supervisor?
Yes, sir.
I move to authorize the DPS and the township supervisor to sign any documents necessary to order up to 50 stations from Kennedy Industries at a total price not to exceed $220,000.
I have motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, thank you. So, moving right along. 10E, request to approve Department of Public Services Maintenance Fleet Vehicle Purchases. Mr. Potter, again.
Yes, timely conversation, can't get stuff. So we've been trying to get quotes for vehicles. Deborah, my executive secretary, has been working on this for well over 6 months. We have a maintenance vehicle that actually I misquoted and think I put 2012 in this, but it's actually a 2014 Ford F-250 that we currently use as a salt spreader, plow, pulls our landscaping equipment, basically general maintenance, heavy-duty work truck. This truck, what we're hoping to replace this truck with is a 3-yard dump truck.
Light
And-
duty. I'll call that a light duty dump.
Yeah, for a dump truck standard, it's like a large landscaping.
F-450?
Thinking F-550.
550.
But something in that general range that would allow us to, basically, one of the main issues that we're having with the current truck is rust. We've spent, let's see here, in just this year since I've taken over maintenance, we've spent $2,800 in maintenance on this truck and the plow and the salt spreader, all related to rust, which is not surprising as the truck is used primarily for salting. I'm going to walk you through a scenario of every typical snow event that we've had. So the truck the hopper on the salt spreader on this truck holds about 1 yard of salt. The salt spreader itself weighs 800 pounds, and the yard of salt weighs approximately 2,000 pounds. So 1 yard of salt, and this is pretty much the maximum load rating of the truck. Bob, our maintenance man, is going down to Breen's in Waterford, which is the closest place that we can go and find a good price on rock salt, bulk rock salt, that will load us up in the middle of the night. It's about a 20-minute drive there, 15, 20 minutes there, 15, 20 minutes back, and about 15, 20 minutes load time. So it's taking them anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, 3 times a night, every single time we get snow. So
Wouldn't you have it delivered?
delivered,
We have no place to store it.
we don't have a place to store bulk rock.
Then you have to load it.
I'd find one. You got a loader.
We don't have a loader.
We don't have a loader.
We do not
Yeah,
have
we got a
loader.
tractor.
That little thing there, you'd be all day and all night.
That tractor cannot lift the bucket high enough to dump salt into
Tell
that
you what I'd
spreader. on the
do.
back
I'd
of
have
the
it
truck.
delivered.
That's outsourced.
And I'd load a little bit in that thing, and I'd spread it, I'd load a little bit, and I'd spread it, and I'd load a little bit, and I'd spread some more.
Well, so we salt all the township fire stations, PD, Town Hall, Dublin, the hill at the tank, the hill at Village Acres, every time we get a snow event. So we tried a couple of things last year to improve this. First, we tried to basically salt lighter, and that came to an abrupt end when Trustee Powell ended up biting it pretty hard in the parking lot. We're thankful. Unfortunately, Trustee Powell, we're not thankful that it was you, but I'm thankful that it wasn't a resident.
canary in the
some,
coal mine.
Yeah, he's the canary in the coal mine for sure. And he was a little more forgiving than maybe some of our residents would be, and I would have felt terrible if somebody would have got hurt. But, in addition to this, we have this generator that we've purchased that we currently don't have a vehicle that's really rated to tow. We'd like to be able to move the generator. We'd like to be able to purchase a truck that could move a small machine. We've been talking about, and it's been in our capital improvement plan, to purchase a backhoe or an excavator, and that's been in the plan since 2016. We currently don't have a machine to do this. We're also currently outsourcing all of our restoration work, which for any water underground service that we offer, then I have to go out and get 3 bids for restoration work. I'd like to bring that work back in-house.
You wouldn't have anybody qualified to even do it.
Well, we would have to train.
Need a CD
Who would
license?
operate any of this stuff?
They need an operating license.
It's not that difficult to learn those machines.
It doesn't require a license to operate a backhoe, but we would have to train. That's correct. We started trying to price this stuff out about, like I said, about 6 months ago. And what we're finding right now, just like our Ram ProMaster van that took 11 months for us to get, is that by the time we even find a vehicle on a lot or hear about a vehicle on a lot, they're sold. No dealership, as Dan Keller, Police Chief Dan Keller mentioned the last meeting that he was in purchasing vehicles, the dealerships are not offering municipal discounts at this time. State of Michigan MI deals are not being offered at this time. So we're trying to go and negotiate these prices ourselves, but the trucks won't stay on the lot for more than a day or two. So we're really having a very hard time even sourcing, or getting a comparable price on a comparable truck. You're kind of limited to what you can get, and if you can find one, like I say, they're gone. I can't even call all of you folks. The truck's already gone. So I've got a couple of different options of trucks that we looked at just on the websites, just to give us some bulk, base budget numbers. One option was a single cab F550, pretty basic. The other option was a cab and a half F550, which actually seats 5 people. So looking at that, I put that price in there because currently we have 3 landscape part-timers that are doing grounds maintenance. They all ride in the single cab truck and pull our landscaping trailer with all of our equipment. The board actually approved me for 4. We are only at 3 right now because I don't have a vehicle for the 4th. This vehicle would allow all of them to use this truck to pull the tractor and the landscaping equipment, and then, they could all ride in it. We do have 3 zero-turn mowers. Currently, we're using 2. Like I said, we've got some capability there that we're not really utilizing, and I think that extra half a cab and that extra capacity in there would help us utilize that capacity and be a lot more flexible with the vehicle. So at this time, I guess this is 2 parts. I'm asking the board to consider allowing DPS to purchase a truck. I've put in some specs on a stainless steel box and a V-blade plow, salt spreader tailgate. There are some prices in here from Knapheide. Depending on the truck that we come up with, not all of those pieces of equipment will be necessary. That was just what I asked Knapheide to put in
anything and everything for a stripped down bare bones truck, just to give us a number for everything. And then the prices on the truck are basically suggested retail prices off their websites. I understand the township clerk has worked with other departments, and his contacts at some of these dealerships, maybe has some better contacts than we do. So if the board decides that they agree that this vehicle is warranted to add to our fleet, then I would ask that the board approve a not-to-exceed budget and allow myself, the supervisor, and the township clerk, and perhaps the township treasurer to use any and all available contacts to come up with the vehicle that meets the needs, within that budget. Our current procurement policy is too rigid for us to actually get accurate quotes in this current market condition.
I'd just like to make a comment. Aaron did ask me to reach out. I reached out to the LaFontaine Group, who have over, I think, 31 dealerships. They have 2 fleet managers. And he's absolutely correct. I didn't know at the time Deborah had previously worked years ago with them. And I was speaking with Mr. Curtis, who runs their fleet operations. As soon as a car comes or a truck comes in or any type of vehicle like that, it's mentioned in the packet, it's gone. So what he explained to me, to get these specific specs, well, you're probably looking at 2023. That's how fast these things are going off the lot, coming in. So I know Deborah did a good job doing her due diligence. The only other suggestion would be, and I haven't had a chance to reach out to him, is the Suburban Group, who is the largest dealership, I think, in the Midwest, I believe. So that'd be our next benefit. So we might not be able to get the specific specs that he wants, but I think what he's looking to do is trying to find something comparable.
Correct. And this is one brand. I don't have any preference on brand. So, we talked about using Zotz in the past. Zotz also currently is not offering municipal discounts. But, Zotz got different brands than Suburban. We have reached out to Suburban, but again, I don't know if Deborah's got the same contacts that you have. So,
would we be trading any vehicles in?
Not. Well,
the current dump truck you're talking about, or the one we
potentially we could trade in the current 2012.
So those,
just going through the list, I'd like to talk about that for a quick second. Just going through the list of the repairs, and this is a list of maintenance that we've done since I got the vehicle. I was not able to actually come across John Wheaton's maintenance records for this vehicle, and so I really don't know what John did with it before. But we had $769 for pinion seals. Battery harness rotted off the truck, and we had battery harness and 3 solenoids that had to get replaced. $181 from rust, corrosion. The blade on the plow was gone. When I looked at it, you could make a case that some of that was from use and wear and tear, but a lot of that was from corrosion. The reservoir on the plow actually had a hole rust through the side of the fluid reservoir, and all of the fluid leaked out. That was another, between those two, another $550. Actually had the this was a good one. The transmission pan rusted out, and 3 quarts of transmission fluid leaked out onto the driveway. That was in the middle of the heaviest snow event of the year, which resulted in us having to call Progressive Irrigation to come in and do emergency salting. And the emergency salting was $510. The transmission pan, $802.87. The body is starting to rust out.
all the way around the wheel wells in the back and all the way along the bottom of the tailgate and the back of the truck bed. If you look up underneath the truck, completely rusted, every single component on the truck, frame, suspension, springs, brakes, every single component. Now, my operators and all my staff are required to, we do every other week vehicle inspections. So at the very least, every other week, every vehicle gets through the car wash, gets the interior cleaned, tools organized, and we start fresh. And I document all the damage that I've seen on the truck or any of the vehicle.
How many miles are on it?
The mileage on that truck is, you know what? I'm not sure if I have that with me. I apologize. I do not have that with me.
I think that's it's in the 80s.
Not excessively high.
It's like in the 80s, isn't it, in the 80s?
No, not quite that high, no. The issue isn't mileage. The issue was, basically, they put that salt spreader on there every fall, and they didn't take it off until spring, and I don't think that truck ever went through a car wash in between. And that's not how, you know, that was before we brought maintenance into DPS. That's not how I operate with my vehicles, and, you know, so I can't really speak to that. But when you know, we can take a tour of it anytime anybody wants to come up and look at that thing, but we're headed for some expensive maintenance with that truck. It's already 8 years old. We use it day in and day out. And now we're using it day in and day out, basically all 4 seasons, because we brought maintenance of the grounds back in-house. So, you know, we mentioned criticality of failure on some of these other, you know, consequences of failure of this truck is going to be pretty high, and it, you know, certain times of the year, if I don't have a salt truck or I don't have this truck in our fleet, then it's going to cost us a lot of money to have somebody else come and salt these properties.
Mr. Roman has a question.
Hey, Aaron, did you say ZOT will not issue the municipal discount?
That is what I understand from Deborah, yes.
That's surprising, don't we?
Yeah,
I thought we had partnerships with them. They advertise on our loaded trucks, and that's surprising that they wouldn't give us that municipal discount, because we've always gotten it since I've been here.
Yeah, well, and again, that may be the
Can we double
difference
check with
between
them?
working with my secretary and working with the clerk of the township. And that's why I've kind of asked the clerk to step in here and use his contacts. You guys have a lot closer relationship with these folks than
We
I
can
do.
double check that one.
Yeah. We've, like I said, we've been calling, first we started our search with our local dealerships. Then we moved out to like a 50-mile radius and kind of went on the online hunt. At this point, we're looking at any and all dealerships that we even become aware of for any reason, anywhere in the state. And my thought was, if I can find this truck that is in the price range that we want to find it in, I'll drive over there and pick the thing up.
So
But
you're not asking for a plow right now, right?
this would include,
I get you.
yeah, what we want to do is purchase a cabin chassis, a stainless steel or an aluminum box, a V-blade plow,
V-blade plow.
and a salt spreader tailgate, and have the truck equipped with emergency lighting.
Poly box, so you don't have to worry about rust anymore.
I thought it was stainless.
The box that I included
No, on
in,
the Salter, it'd be poly. You getting a poly box for the Salter? Or stainless?
no, well, we have lots of different options, but what I included in the package and that price I received from Knapheide was a Henderson, what they call a contractor box. So it's got flip down sides, so if you wanted
No,
to
I'm
use
talking
it
about the
as a,
Salter. I was referring to the Salter.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It's, so the salt spreader is actually a stainless steel tailgate that mounts onto the dump box. So you'd be able to install that tailgate in the wintertime, use the truck for all your salt spreading
I know where you're
needs.
going.
In the summertime, you swap that tailgate out, you put it in the storage, and you put the regular tailgate on for the
Spreader gate.
landscaping work.
What was the total cost of all of the stuff?
The cost of the suggested retail prices was $110,000.
110?
But I do firmly believe that we can build this truck for less than that. Like I said, Knapheide just included anything and everything that I might need, depending on the brand of truck. For example, the PTO that operates the dump, some 550 class or 450 class trucks have those, some don't, depends on the brand. Mud flaps, things like that. Some of them, those things come all standard on the cabin chassis. Some of them, they don't. So, you know, there's a few costs in there that we don't know what we're going to need yet on that Knapheide quote. Now, that also was only one quote. There are many outfitters. I reached out to Bostitch. They didn't return me a quote. I reached out to SBC Truck Equipment. They didn't return me a quote. So far, the only quote that I've got is from Knapheide, but there are a lot of places where we could get dump boxes. There's also a truck out there, incidentally, hang on just one second. There's also a truck out there that is spec'd exactly like what I'm looking to purchase, and they call it the Monroe Snow Fighter package. Has identical box, identical plow, emergency lighting, all of the above. But the cost on that truck was like $130,000. So it kind of reinforced my thought that working with our partners, you know, at Knapheide or maybe Bostitch, we can build the truck that we want that suits our needs for less expensive than buying a package deal that just has a brand name on it, you know, from a dealership.
And this came up because you were, because of the overtime of going to get the salt?
Yeah, that's one factor. I mean, it costs us a lot of overtime for plowing, for sure. I mean, we get a 1/4 inch of snow on this parking lot. I think there was about a 1/4 inch of snow when Mr. Powell ate it in the parking lot. And it doesn't take much, you know. We've got a lot of elderly folks that come in and out of here.
I watched him go.
I heard about it after the fact when he came in here and he was all covered with snow. And, you know, like I said, that was very unfortunate that happened to you, but it was very fortunate for the township that it didn't happen to somebody else. Typically on a snow event, just depends on what we get. Unlike, you know, John, what he was doing when he was doing it by himself was he would come in at like 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning and he'd plow all night long. And then we wouldn't see him again after 8 a.m. You know, whereas now that we've merged DPS and maintenance, everybody comes in at 4 or 5 a.m., just depending on how deep the snow is. Everybody tackles all of the township facilities, town hall, Dublin, fire stations, and then Bob will go out to the other sites, the cemeteries and Fisk Farm and things like that, and get those opened up. And my guys will go off and do the water plants. You know, so we've reduced overtime a great deal.
It's much more efficient, I will tell you.
You know, it's much more efficient. We've got help now. We've got people. We don't need to grind somebody into the ground all winter long. You know, if you're getting snow every couple of days, wintertime can become a
So
long
let's
one.
cut to the chase here.
Yeah.
Okay? How much you looking for, 110,000?
Looking for $110,000 and an approval to start specking out and purchase a dump truck.
To shop. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Ruggles?
Don't take it personally, Aaron.
Yeah.
There couldn't be a worse time to buy a truck. There couldn't be a worse time to spec out that dump, or the salter, or the blade. Do you really need it? No. You want it. If it was mine, I'd have that salt delivered, I'd tarp it, I'd put 3 blocks, and have the guy load the truck. The overtime's gone, you got it on site, and you don't need this diesel-powered mega truck that you're describing, because it's not basic, it's diesel. That's a $10,000 option. It's a $550, not a $3, and I could go on, but not to attack your proposal, but I just don't think at this point in time that DPS needs this kind of a vehicle, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, very good. Any other comments?
So I concur with Trustee Ruggles. Please don't take any offense, but I'm going to be a no this evening on this. I'd like you to see you work on it a little bit. It's not something we need right now, and there are a lot of unknowns. We don't know if we can get the municipal discount and things like that. So I'd kind of like you to really hone it in and work on it, maybe bring it back to the board at a later date. I also would like maintenance logs on your vehicles. We recently requested that of the police department and the fire department. So I think that's a good, something good to have across the board, especially since we just both, we requested both of them to do that as well. And then you made a comment that we have nothing rated to tow. Did I hear you correctly?
We have nothing that's rated to tow that generator currently.
Just the
No.
generator? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And also, like I said, it's been in our capital improvement plan for going on 6 years now, that we want to purchase a machine sooner or later. Currently, we hire out on all underground work, and that could be anything from a curb box replacement, a $35, $40 part cost me, anywhere upwards of $1,200 to get replaced because I have to hire contractors, most of the time on Oakland County contracts, to come in and replace this stuff. So we do feel that we do have a need to bring in a small machine in-house and bring back some of that capability. And, we don't currently have a truck for that either. So we could go with a smaller truck currently, but then, a few years down the road when we're ready to bring in that machine, we'd be right back here at the drawing board.
I just emailed Jeff Schneider for Zot, and you're correct, they're not honoring municipal discounts right now. So that's correct.
Okay.
Pretty much across the board.
And I also want to just mention that a maintenance record just got passed down to me. It's not in our packet, so thank you, whoever just sent this my way.
Yeah, I just pulled that out of my file. We do keep maintenance records for my vehicles. Like I said, I wasn't able to get John's maintenance records. I don't know that he was keeping a maintenance log. He certainly turned in all his receipts to Elaine, but, I didn't want to have Elaine go back through 10 years of records trying to find maintenance receipts for that truck.
No,
I didn't
I'm just
think it was
mentioning it
necessary.
because that's something that we've brought up recently, and I
Yeah.
think it's,
Yeah.
just good to do.
Yeah, Aaron's taking care of.
Truck is 8 years old, and like I said, it's very rusty. So I agree, the environment right now is not very conducive for purchasing vehicles. However, unfortunately, our work continues whether the environment is good or bad. We're bringing a lot more services back in-house. We've recently brought back in all the township lawn maintenance back in-house. We're doing this work for cheaper than our contractors were doing it before. Just looking at this, the vehicles get old when they get old. And, right now this vehicle is getting up there in years, and I think it's ready to be out of our fleet before it starts to cost us an arm and a leg, or, heaven forbid, we lose this when we need it.
Well, the worst part is when it breaks down right in front of the township hall and there's two guys crawling underneath the truck trying to figure out what's wrong with the transmission. It's snowing profusely. Yeah. That was a nice view out my window.
Yeah.
So, that being said, Mr. Powell.
I guess I had a question. We have a very, very nice van out there, decked out for DPS. And that vehicle is not rated. What's the towing, what's the weight of your generator that you're trying to pull around?
That generator actually is close to 15,000 pounds.
That van is only rated to tow like 5,000.
Okay, so
Yeah.
but the 250, that's on the top side of the 250.
You're gonna maybe get it to move, but you're pushing it.
I sure as
And
hell wouldn't want
that's,
to try to break it.
that's what we're gonna use if we have a failure, so everybody's clear. I mean, if we do have a failure, that's what we're gonna use. But overloading a vehicle, and John was putting, and us, at times, we're forced to put in a yard and a half of snow in that hopper because we had, heavy snow. The more snow we get, the longer it takes us to get it done. So, you just start overloading it. It's very clear by looking at that truck that they've been overloading it for many years. I've had it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And like I said, that bill that you see there for all those repairs is just what we've done in the last, since I've taken over maintenance. So that's about About 6 months now.
About 6 months.
So the vehicles is quoted at 110,000, but then you have 35,000 you have to add to that. So you're at 145,000, correct?
No, that's not correct. The total
Looking for.
of the spec, if we paid suggested retail on the vehicle and had to purchase all of the parts from Knapheide, would total up to 110.
Okay, so that includes the 35,000 on the lower. So it says DPS would like the township to approve a budget not to exceed $35,000 as well.
Yes, so there's two parts to this. Part one was the maintenance dump. Part two is the Ford Transit Connect minivan.
Page 185.
Yeah,
So-
85.
Currently, our township custodian, actually not currently, I think the entire time he's worked here, our township custodian has been asked to use his own vehicle to perform his custodial duties at our township facilities. I don't think that's appropriate. I think there's a number of liability issues there. And I also think that, he doesn't have a vehicle that he can fit the things that he needs. This would be basically the same vehicle that we have in DPS currently that our hydrant painting crew is utilizing, but essentially it's a minivan. We find the one that we have now to be extremely versatile. We've got it outfitted with a small rack system in the back, but this is essentially just a cargo van. I'd like to purchase this vehicle for the maintenance custodian to use as his township vehicle during all of his township work. This, again, same situation. Can't get a quote. These things last a day or two on the lot because these are hot commodities. So I'm not able to get a quote. Anthony knows many contacts. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Ford, something in the similar class. So I'm asking for the board to approve a budget and approve us to purchase this vehicle so that our township staff doesn't have to use their own vehicles to complete their township work.
Mr. Roman?
Aaron, I was just curious, what does he need to take back and forth? Like, what kind of equipment are you talking about?
Floor scrubber, cleaning supplies, paper towel, toilet bowl cleaner, hand towels.
Can't he just leave a bunch of that over there so
Well,
that
it's
he
got to
doesn't
get there.
He can, we take it over there
have it
for him.
mailed over there or something? I
Again,
just think it's,
He still needs to go over there, so he does need a township vehicle to
he
get
needs
over there.
something to get there.
if He's on the clock.
Yeah, I get that.
If you bought a truck, you'd have an extra one, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could keep that truck and use that as a maintenance vehicle, sure.
Talking the van that you have now.
We're gonna keep I mean, and again, that truck is 8 years old. And
Oh, the
it's
pickup.
rusted out badly. I mean, last couple months ago, we replaced a vehicle that was 2
talking
years
about
old
just
that had
driving the
30,000
toilet
miles
paper
on
to
it.
Dublin.
And we're gonna ask our
Matter
staff
if
that
it's
does work
rusted
for
out,
us to
toilet bowl
make.
cleaners.
One conversation at a time. Let Mr. Potter finish. Go ahead.
I mean, I'd like my staff to have proper vehicles and, the right tools to do the job. If we run these things to failure, we get nothing out of it. The thing is, right now, we could sell these trucks, and the market is great for resale as well.
But you're not talking about
Unfortunately, the
selling
market's
it.
bad for purchasing a new vehicle, but the market is great for a resale.
Okay, let me stop you there. We possibly were talking about getting rid of the 2014, okay? The one that's rusting out and has had series of problems with it.
What we're talking,
To get
we are
rid of.
talking about that?
Get rid of that. Well, this is kind of there's two things running together here. Get rid of that truck and get what I call the light-duty dump, okay, in lieu of that truck, okay? So that it would have greater towing capacity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think I heard over here, keep that truck and then let.
It was just an idea.
Well, it's not necessarily a bad one, okay?
Yeah, it's
Keep that-
certainly an option.
Keep that truck and designate it for that purpose, because if you're hauling the floor scrubber and, this and that and everything, inevitably, stuff has to get to A to B, and, you know, and it just, we do multiple buildings. And then it would be another vehicle that is much more versatile in one respect. I know it's older, and I know one of these days it's going to croak out, but it is what it
Mr.
is.
Supervisor, I heard the floor scrubber. That cannot be hauled on a daily basis. That wouldn't even make any sense to me.
on a daily basis.
I mean, I take cases of paper towel, toilet paper, cleaning supplies in a Ford Fusion, for heaven's sakes. And I'm not sure why we need a van
Well,
for
by the
our
time-
maintenance guy.
By the time you buy any kind of little car, almost anymore of anything, these vans are not that expensive.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're very versatile.
I know,
Look
but
at the versatility of a van versus the car.
Oh,
A van
no.
can be used for all kinds of
if
things.
dollars weren't an issue, get everybody brand new.
I don't think
But
that you
you're
can
not-
find a
so-
Ford Fusion for less money than you can find a
Yeah, I
van
see.
for a minivan.
I'm not comparing Ford Fusion, I'm talking about.
I've got an idea.
We're talking about three vehicles here now that are overloading me just a little bit.
No, not three.
10, the next item is a truck.
Right.
So you're talking, you can't take one at a time when we're trying to decide, are we outfitting a service station here, or are we taking care of a township building? I mean.
We're getting up to $250,000.
He's
Yeah.
asking for a fleet.
I have a suggestion. When the police cars go out of service, we have an option to purchase that like we have in the past.
Yeah.
Use it for a couple years, rotate it out. That's, we'll be able to still get the money out of it when we sell it. The last cycle round, we had sold one for, I think, over $12,000 when we did the sealed bids. He could look at, he just said it doesn't have to be a Ford. I think that's what he's trying to replace. We could look at Chrysler. I spoke with Mr. Schneider over there, and he said he'd be happy to take a look at it. At MSRP, he's not looking to do, can't get the fleet or the state discount right now.
I'm just saying, I know what vehicles I drive and what I have, and we're asking, everyone wants to drive a brand-new vehicle here, and I'm having a problem with that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be using a new vehicle, it'd be using an existing one.
I understand that. One of the issues that Aaron talked about was he's driving he's got a police vehicle that has 80,000 miles on it, and it's just older.
Well, not that it's not practical
Not
to
to
have
that,
it for tools or carrying
we're
a
not to
key.
that agenda
I understand that,
item
but
yet,
you're
I
now
would- I have
talking
a lot
about
to
buying
speak about that.
a van for a cleaning guy, for heaven's sakes.
I'm not necessarily agreeing with that. I know what you're talking about.
I have an idea. What if we table this for a month so that everyone can do a little more research on this?
I agree. I
Yeah,
think this
I
really
agree.
needs to be worked on a lot more,
Yeah.
a lot more. It's too much, Aaron, I'm sorry, but it's just too much.
Well, my point is that we've been working on this for, like I said, about 6 months. I'll have Deborah assemble her entire file on what she's done so far. And I think that, I really didn't want to muddle up this with all of that because it was just going to confuse everybody. But the point is that you can't get a quote for a truck. They're gone before we can follow our procurement policy. So I really can't come to you with 3 quotes the way our procurement policy requires me to do. And so what I'm asking you to do is, like I said, agree that we need the vehicle, that's first step.
That's what we're doing. You got 3 ideas.
And then B, approve a budget and approve a team to find a vehicle that will meet those requirements within that budget. Again, on the maintenance van, I think I just do not think it's correct in any way to require an employee to use his personal vehicle for township business. We don't have a vehicle for him to use at the moment. This is a very versatile vehicle. I'm not dead set against other versatile vehicles. Our minivan that we have, I use that as our guide because we're very happy with what we're doing with it. Right now, I've got 2 young students pulling a trailer full of township painting equipment, out doing our hydrant maintenance program. Before, it was used by one of my water operators. Something something versatile that we can use and repurpose as we find new uses for it. Those are the types of vehicles that I would be looking at. You know, and so I'm not dead set on a minivan. I don't think a car is that versatile, but that's, you know.
Let me ask you a question of my colleagues. If we don't act on item number 1, I think that's 10E, the first part of 10E anyway. When we need it in September, we might get it delivered in March. I'm wondering, is there a lead time that we need to give the township if we need that bigger vehicle, that dump?
About 6 months. for
Does it make
delivery.
sense to think about ordering it now so that when we actually need it, it actually comes
Mr. Paul,
in?
you bring up a good point. I think what I would do is, that would be the one vehicle that I would move on because it serves multi-purpose.
Yeah.
We still have the 14, we'll press it into service wherever we have to, and we can do a quick evaluation, see where we're at as to what the practicalities of some of the vehicles that we may be able to take internally and shuffle around if we have any surplus vehicles, or by surplus, I mean sell off police vehicles. Aaron has been driving the one. It's a little difficult when you start to try to throw a shovel and some other tools in it and this and everything when he goes out. And even the box key is a little long. So
I don't
Next
believe that,
agenda
I don't
item.
believe that you can order a Ford vehicle right now. You can't just go to the dealer and say, I'm going to order this truck. They're not doing it.
No,
Can't
I
be
think,
done.
I heard that they are ordering.
about 6 months.
You can't go on the lot and buy one, but they're asking.
Don't take orders. It's done. There isn't, you can't order it, so.
But what's happening is, and that's exactly the case, and that's exactly what Aaron's talking about.
That's
So
precisely
that's
why I'm here now.
We would like to have a budget. He's asking the board if we would approve a budget, a box budget for that particular truck, so that when they do arrive, I found one over at Birch Run,
Yeah.
over there, and it was gone.
It's so.
Okay.
And at the same time, you can't order it, but the MSRP isn't real either. So if you go in there, they're not going to sell it to you at MSRP. That's not really happening. It's above and beyond, whatever their discretion is.
Well,
That's a real thing.
I understand we will have to try to use our connections and whatever influence we have with the dealers that we know to try to get them to be kind to the township. But if we set a budget, that's the budget. We're not going to exceed it. If we can't find a vehicle with the amenities on it, then so be it.
I have to say something real quick. Since Aaron's taken over, he's taken over the maintenance records to Liz's, trustee Smith's point. He's got a program. He's taken all the vehicles that the Front Township owns, and he's keeping copious records through that program, correct, Mr. Potter? Doing a nice job with it.
The vehicles that, yeah, so we kind of found out after the fact that John was also doing vehicle maintenance for most of the township. So when we took over maintenance, that came with it.
That asset tracking, which is an
They weren't
accounting.
previously, we are
Wasn't
now.
previously used, and
Yeah.
you're utilizing it, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Thank you for doing so. We appreciate it.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
try to move this along.
Most of them have not been maintained yet
Okay,
by me.
Aaron, in the sake of moving this along, because we could kick this truck down the road for the next 7 months. It'll be snowing by the time we get one. Mr. Powell, I agree with you. I think you're on to, what I would do would be to move forward, recommend that we consider what you're talking about, recommend moving forward with the light-duty dump, as we'll call it, and table the other 2 items for the time being for a little more homework to be done.
I'd really, and I'm following you, I would very much like the administration to do a total fleet analysis and say, we want an extra police car sitting out there just in case a car fails and we need to get in it. Well, let's start not doubling up on vehicles that are just going to be sitting around just in case. If you have to use another vehicle to transfer a floor polisher, for heaven's sakes, then so be it, but.
Right, no, I get it, but I'm keeping the police vehicles out of this at the
Yep.
moment, and we're just looking at general township fleet.
And fire, the same way.
Yeah, I know.
Supervisor's car, the same way.
I had the same car that I had since I got here.
The township owns the car, and so if it's sitting here, then they should be able to use it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true, I agree.
So
Okay,
I'm with you.
so do you care to make a motion, Mr. Powell, since it was your idea?
To, it was thrown out as a discussion
Well,
item.
it's a good idea.
Mr. Supervisor, then to at least move it off dead center, I make a motion to allow the DPS staff and the township administration to evaluate and secure a vehicle for a price not to exceed $110,000 that approaches and tries to meet the specs presented to us tonight.
I will support that motion. Roll call vote.
Hold on, comment.
Question, comment.
Before we vote, you're asking us to say that it's okay for us to have a $110,000 dump truck around here? Just so I understand this.
That's the budget, yes.
That's the quote.
There's no way that what's described on here will be below 110, so what happens then?
Like, then he doesn't get his truck.
They'll have to come back.
But
He'll
it's
have to come back.
gonna go like this. I'm gonna get the truck for 55, I'm gonna get the box for 20, and then all of a sudden, I'm out of money for the salt spreader, because everything else went so far over. So then what do we do, not buy the salt spreader?
Do we have a salt spreader that functions right now?
Yes.
I'm just telling you how it's gonna trickle down.
So we do, so yeah.
It would work, but again, Mr. Potter has already spoken to individuals in Napa, I can never say that right, and they have already put something together that should be able to be delivered in that particular range.
You
So
believe that?
I don't know that. If
We don't
can
know
get
it
those
100%,
prices.
but
unless I can get an approval from the board, I can't do anything, because I can't get 3 quotes and hold these quotes till our next board meeting and have this debate again, and then go back and think that I'm going to get that price. So what I'm asking
I'm
for
just
is a
saying,
budget.
with this motion, 110 isn't gonna do it, so.
well,
That's fine.
that may be the case, but we'll find out as we go through the process.
And then what happens if it won't do it? Then we say. oh,
Then
gotta
we
go
can
10,
discuss,
20 more?
then it'll come back to this board and the board will make a discussion.
If I recall correctly, the motion was to authorize up to $110,000 to get as close as possible to the specs presented today.
Correct.
Yep.
I understand that, but with the specs, 110 won't get you there.
That remains to be seen. Okay, we have motion, we have support, roll call vote.
Trustee Powell.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
No?
Supervisor Koval.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith.
No?
Trustee Ruggles.
No.
Motion still carries. Come back to the board and let us know what you have, and we'll move forward with that. Regarding the other vehicles, we make a motion to table.
For the number 2 on this agenda, or number 1 or 2
2 and
and
3.
3?
We at least have a discussion
Yep,
regarding the
I agree.
We
police
already did.
vehicle.
We discussed this to death, okay?
I'm
It's
opposed
going to be
to that.
removed from the agenda tonight, okay?
I'm opposed to that.
Are we moving or tabling? I'm sorry, I just
We're
didn't
going
hear
to
you.
just table it.
Okay.
Table. Okay, make a motion.
I'll motion to table the other 2 vehicles from 10E and 10F.
Support.
Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So I just have a
We got one
question,
opposed.
even though
We got one opposed.
Yep.
we've talked this
Opposed
to
tabling.
death. I do
Motion
have one
still
question.
Were you going to deny?
Motion still carries.
Rick, I know we talked this to death, but I have one question here. Can we, so Mr. Powell kind of made 2 statements in his motion. Can we re-motion that we still have the fleet analyzed?
We don't need to put that in a motion, it's just something that can be done. It's always being done.
That was a request I gave the administration.
Yeah, that was a request.
In your motion, so that passed, that will happen then?
It's-
I'm just looking for clarity.
Yes.
So
It's-
that
it's-
part's a good idea.
The fleet is generally reviewed continually, on a continuing basis. There are more vehicles here that we need to replace, believe me. Okay, so.
Yes.
But I'm not going to bring them forward to the board right now, so.
It was in my motion, though, to have the administration evaluate the fleet, and by golly, you should present it to us.
Absolutely, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so E is tabled, and F is tabled. Item G, consideration of preliminary site plan approval, Comfort Care rezoning.
Hello again.
Hi.
Okay, so tonight, one of the other projects before you is a comfort care facility. It's an assisted living facility and memory care facility that is right across Union Lake Road from Independence Village, or very nearly across the road. Can fly over there. I know Mr. Powell likes this.
Yes.
So, this is the parcel right here. I'll flip back over. The orientation here is not quite the same, but it's sort of shaped like the state of Tennessee. But it's right here. It's not a very deep site, but it is a very wide site along Union Lake Road. Here's Independence Village. The applicant was at the Planning Commission back in May. Let me go back to that. No, the computer's not going to cooperate. Okay. So this is an approximately 8.7 acre site that's currently zoned local business, and the applicant proposes to rezone it to PD. You were somewhat familiar with this because you granted a waiver for them to proceed through the PD process with a parcel that's less than 10 acres in size. The Planning Commission on May 19th had a public hearing to consider both the rezoning, I should say a public hearing to consider the rezoning as well as the site plan, and at that time they recommended site plan approval. There are some conditions, and one of them is a little bit unique. This property is, let me go back down, immediately adjacent to the West Valley project. It actually, if you look at the screen here, at the, I'm going to say southwest corner, you can see this kind of cul-de-sac where it touches the West Valley apartment project, which is this vacant property right here. This site was designed with a detention basin, not a retention basin, so it's a much smaller basin in size, and it basically pre-treats and stores some water, and then in a major storm event overflows. It's designed to overflow into the basin, I should say into the stormwater system at West Valley. So since the very beginning, that has been their goal, and we'd certainly like for there to be cooperation. And maybe Mr. Doug Bohm, who is here representing Comfort Care, can kind of give us an update on where things stand. But as you all know, Michael Finari, who is the owner of the West Valley project, has not progressed at all yet. This project can't be built until there is a stormwater system to accept the potential overflow that could occur in a major rain event to this detention basin. So that's the one major sticking point with this design that kind of gives, I know, Mike some pause, and the Planning Commission had some concern as well. I mean, as do I. They believe they have the ability to redesign the site if the West Valley project doesn't go ahead, but it would have to be reconfigured. The basin would have to be significantly increased in size, so it would kind of put everything on hold for an engineering redesign. This project initially came through requiring many, I don't want to call them variances, but modifications because of the size of the building. The density was a bit high too. I want to say they took roughly 10 units out to reduce the density to get it back in line with what the master plan was calling for. The Planning Commission was pleased with that, and in doing so was able to reduce some of the dimensional variances as well. Again, this is a very challenging site. You know, from my perspective, this is a pretty quiet use for this area. It's right across the street from another similar use. We really didn't have anyone in the public show up to object at the public hearing. The neighbor behind the project had some concerns about access, and I think he's talked to Mr. Bohm. It's kind of unique. There is a very nice home tucked right in behind this facility that has an access drive that runs through the Comfort Care property on an easement, which you can see right here. So his gravel drive will be paved and then at least maintained through the paved area by Comfort Care, and then this resident will be able to continue on their existing driveway back here. There is a screen wall at the back of the property to buffer them. So that was really the only neighbor that had much to say about it, and I think it's because this use is a needed use in our community. We have one opening on Williams Lake Road in the next probably several weeks, one right across the street here. But even after this facility, I would venture to guess that another facility of this type may be needed for our aging population. So that is kind of where things stand. Your review letters are in the packet. If you have any questions for them, I'm happy to go through it for you in detail. And I know Mike's happy to talk to you further about the stormwater detention system issue that, excuse me, I mentioned to start my comments. Let's see. It's kind of I like to look at all that.
Sean, it actually goes beyond the stormwater system. The water
I'm sorry, I
main.
didn't get into the.
Water main and the roads would need to be available for use too. The cul-de-sac at the north side of the West Valley property is planned to be used for emergency secondary access there. And the plan also proposes a second water main connection that West Valley had stub out on their property too. Without any of those available for beneficial use, this property really doesn't have the engineering feasibility that we look for. So it's completely dependent on the West Valley development.
Without a redesign.
Without a redesign,
Right.
correct.
Sean, do we know where and the reason I'm pulling this out, do we know where the kitchen is in this? Unfortunately, I've had to visit these a great deal more than what I've wanted to in the last 3 years. And one of the major drop-off points and unloading area is the kitchen area. And I noticed that the loading-unloading zone is way at the north end of this site. There are no sidewalks to it. There's no access to the building from the loading zone, and I don't know how that functions.
Mr. Powell, to answer your question, it looks like a kitchen, or a kitchen is located right here. Is there just one kitchen? So the kitchen is right here, sort of central to the building. And if let me zoom out a little bit.
So what's going to happen is the loading truck, the delivery truck's going to stop right in the middle of the drive there and outlet and unload in that door along the west side of the building in order to access the kitchen area and the pantry area.
Probably so.
Yeah.
At the back of the building, yep.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Ruggles? You care to elaborate?
Sure. So, yeah, we saw this at the Planning Commission. One topic that was discussed is the public benefit. These individuals have offered to donate some money to our Parks and Rec Fund, and that amount changed. I think the last number was, what, 12,000, am I right?
It was 20.
20,000.
Started at 5 and it went to 20, and the Planning Commission wanted the Township Board to weigh in to determine whether that was satisfactory.
Well, some people in the Planning Commission thought that they should offer more, but my personal opinion, I thought that was 20 is
Very generous.
more than what they should even offer. I thought that was a large sum. To put it in perspective, and I mentioned this at the Planning Commission, the potential project over here on Hill Road, they're donating $100,000 or have offered $100,000, and that's a $140 million project. So it equates to about 0.00078% of their project cost. If we took that same amount, that same percentage, they'd have to put up $9,300. So just to kind of put it all on a level playing field. So they've offered more than actually what Avalon has offered us in comparison. So I just thought that I would mention that to the Township Board.
Very good point, Mr. Ruggles.
But we haven't completed the Hilltop development yet either, so it may be twice that, or 10 times that, or 100 times that, so. I have a question. One of the things one of my concerns about public benefit is not necessarily taking money in and somewhere up in the White Lake Road area building a tree farm out of the money. That's benefiting the township in some way, but it doesn't benefit the area. It doesn't benefit the reason why we might be able to do something in this area here. Does it make any sense at all to, because they have so much riding on the adjacent property anyway, how about extending the sidewalk all the way down as far south towards Union Lake as possible. I dream about having a pathway that these people can walk all the way down to Union Lake one of these days. And if we don't get started on that and force somebody to do something, we're never going to have it. And so it might make some sense to do that and maybe even have the township approach. I don't care if I do it as part of the board, approach some people down here and try to get easements across their property and see how far south we can get the sidewalk for $20,000 or $30,000.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about it is this project will put a frontage sidewalk in, as will West Valley, and now you're really all the way down to almost Rossfield, if you're looking at an aerial. So there's quite a stretch, and you'd really start up by St. Pat's, because Preserved Hidden Lake has a sidewalk. So now you've got 3 projects lining up in a row, bringing quite a stretch of sidewalk.
Right.
The goal of kind of collecting these funds in bits and pieces is to then maybe target some of the areas of high priority in a Parks and Rec master plan and pool several contributions together to put in meaningful gaps. And I think the one that you've mentioned is an excellent suggestion to look at, and I'm sure is on their radar. But obviously $20,000 alone won't do it. But coupled with, I know the new project was supposed to have an off-site sidewalk, and there were some complications on Williams Lake Road, so it was an either or. So there'd be a contribution coming there. The Trailside Meadow project was supposed to put an off-site sidewalk in as a part of their project, either or. And there's a significant, I don't remember, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but it was tens of thousands of dollars in a contribution. So you're starting to pull these dollars together, and now you're really coming up with something.
They come up with some real money.
Right.
So, and I agree, that's the way to look at it. But what I'd like to do, I'd like to stay on topic and really try to just talk about the preliminary site plan approval.
Well, if we approve a site plan, however, it better have some language in
Well,
it.
it's preliminary.
Oh,
Okay.
so we're going to get another chance to see
You
this?
are not. You will see the development agreement. You'll see the development
But we
agreement. But I would say that your recommendation, if you choose to move it ahead, you could sew into your recommendation some language that then directs, other actions to occur as a result of it. And it may allow it to come back and be referenced in some way in the development agreement. It all gets
Is this
kind
a
of tied.
planned
The
development?
planning commission did
It is.
ask for
So
direction.
we'll get a shot at the plan development.
And Mr. Ruggles can certainly carry back to the planning commission
Absolutely.
these sentiments as well.
That's why I put them there.
And maybe the Park and Rec can even propose a project south of here
Yep,
even more.
I agree.
And Trustee Voorhees can carry
Yes.
that message.
Yep, I will.
Good point.
Not that I can't, but I'm just saying you
Right,
guys
right,
are.
right.
Like I say, I understand your concern, but I really want to stay on point with what we're looking at. Any other concerns of,
So I agree with Mr. Powell. This is our chance to
Yeah.
put in these conditions and sew in, if you will, if you want to use that term. So I would like to discuss that and make sure that we are.
I was going to actually put it in the motion to
Perfect.
not allow it to get out. One other point that I just wanted to point out here, even though the density is, the number of the density appears to be high here, it's really a low intense use. You can walk around the sidewalks, and very little traffic except for the times at night when families are coming in and things like that. So it's not like an apartment complex here. There's going to be a lot more traffic on the adjacent neighborhoods than there are going to be here. So it's a fairly quiet neighbor. Mr. Supervisor, are you ready for a motion?
yes, I'm waiting patiently.
So I move to, not consider, I move to approve the preliminary site plan for Comfort Care as presented, subject to all the consultants' reviews and the planning commission reviews and the staff's reviews, and that the extension of the sidewalk all the way along as far south down Union Lake Road as possible be evaluated and presented as part of the site plan and incorporated in the development agreement.
So specific, if I could ask, just specifically almost earmarked for a sidewalk extension south. So this contribution will go toward a sidewalk further south.
That is correct.
Okay.
Support.
A motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, thank you. Okay, now it brings us to the next item, first reading, Comfort Care rezoning.
This is just, pretty straightforward. This is the other piece that moves with a PD or a PB, which is the rezoning action. So this would be first reading of the rezoning from local business to planned development.
Could I ask you, Sean, what is the reason this can't be built in local business?
What is the
Is it not allowed, is it a use not allowed in C1?
I don't believe it is. It's a multiple you can build these facilities on ag with certain acreage, and RM1 and RM2, but not in local business. It's not, there's not a residential component in local business.
Okay, so.
The other challenge was the flexibility of trying to fit something in here. And to your point, the densities may seem high, but there's not going to be the impact. It's a one-story building, so this gave them some flexibility to get this use in with the constraints of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the board? With that none being said, I will make a motion to take this to second reading for rezoning for Comfort Care. That is a motion. Support. Motion support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Consideration of planned business development agreement with Taco Bell. Taco Bell.
I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor, if I
Yes.
could, nowhere on this plan does it show the sidewalk on site being tied to the sidewalk out front. There's no tie at all, and obviously, in your review and Justin's review, you're going to want to make sure that
There's something from the front door.
there's something from this site that can tie into that sidewalk we just talked about.
Well, again, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. Mr. Ruggles can address that with the.
We'll make sure we get the sidewalk
Right.
out there, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Consideration of planned business development agreement with Taco Bell.
Okay, so Taco Bell, you saw it preliminary, and the Planning Commission last Thursday saw it for final site plan and consideration of the development agreement. Let me. So it's a little more straightforward. It is on the Meyer Outlot at the northeast corner of Bogey and M59. It's a really, I guess I can say oddly configured site, but it is 1 acre in size, and it is currently zoned planned business already. So again, tonight you're just looking at the agreement. The site plan has been approved by the Planning Commission, and it is recommended for approval to you tonight. There were a couple of items that came up during the discussion at the Planning Commission last Thursday. It pertains to kind of changing some labeling on some items that are going to be kept within the dumpster enclosure, pretty straightforward stuff. And then also trying to reconfigure the dumpster enclosure location. And this is the site plan. To accommodate a couple of the trees that they're really unable to fit. So we're going to cut, this is the dumpster enclosure we're talking about. It's pretty large, but they have some recycling bins in there as well as a grease trap, a grease tank, I should say, in their dumpster. So they're going to work at the staff level. That was the Planning Commission's direction to maybe modify this just a bit to fit more trees in. So other than that, a couple things I'll point out are, again, it's a very narrow site, so it's pretty challenging. They're going to provide cross-access as a requirement of this approval with McDonald's. Obviously, they can, your action tonight can't compel McDonald's to sign the other half of it, but McDonald's has committed to signing it. You can require Mr. Lou Dortch, who is here on behalf of Taco Bell, as well as Mr. Greg Lutzenheiser, to at least execute their half. It's always messy. This happens all the time. When you've got a new project coming in, you can get one side of it signed, and until the neighbor next door has some need to get township approval, we can't necessarily compel them to, but we believe that Mark Fowle, the owner of McDonald's, who has always operated in good faith, will come through and work with McDonald's corporate, who's also involved, to get this cross-access nailed down. It is a condition of their approval. One other item that's being offered is a little bit of landscaping around what is otherwise a very ugly but necessary feature, which is a sanitary lift station that's right at that corner. That provided them with some site challenges as well, because it's right out in front and there's a bit of a distance. They've got to stay away from it. The county had some comments about the types of plant material that are in there, because obviously you can't just plant anything. And, Director Potter has been involved in it as well, as has Engineer Lufkin. We're at a point where this is pretty straightforward. This is an outlet that's, I think, as well as all these other outlets, overdue for development and really a straightforward project. So other than the minor items that are found within the review letters that the applicants have agreed to address, I don't really have anything else to comment on. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Lisa was a reviewer of this development agreement, as was Mike. If you have any questions for them, I'm sure they would also be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this time? Mr. Powell?
This is a hope more than anything. I'm hoping that there's no U-turn sign at the point of the island in Bogey Lake Road there. People coming from Meyer are going to come down here, and what a shame to have to come down, take a right on Highland Road, go all the way around, go all the way past, come all the way back to get into the new Taco Bell. So on Bogey Lake Road there, are we allowed to do a U-turn around the island, the point of the island, to get back into the Taco Bell?
I don't think so. That striping does not look inviting for a U-turn, even though the word Bogey Lake Road kind of makes a U-turn there.
I would do it in a heartbeat unless there was a sign.
I would not pull you over.
Good point. Okay, although.
Doesn't look very safe.
Yeah, it's not, there's not a lot of radii there to.
Well, any U-turn doesn't look safe through any intersection, so.
Yeah, I at this point, I don't know, and it's actually something that didn't come up, but it's interesting because people who leave, Meyer are going to have to make
taco when he
quite a
leaves
bit of.
Yeah, absolutely.
You leave
Right.
Myers, and then your wife calls you before you hit
Sounds like it's happened before.
59, and you do a little
Sounds like
U-turn.
a personal experience.
The bell goes off, man.
You and I go the same way, Mike.
Yeah. So one quick thing I want to mention is this site is obviously a small site. The planning commission didn't feel there was a whole lot of impact. So the public benefit is landscaping the corner. So it kind of beautifies what is, not terribly beautiful right now in that lift station. And also they're making a $5,000 contribution to the pathway fund. So I would say that if you would like to, you could probably earmark this $5,000 to go toward the Union Lake sidewalk, if you'd like
I'm going to
to.
let Parks and Rec do that.
Okay. I didn't know if that was something you wanted to specifically,
Otherwise, half of our budget would be earmarked for that project.
it might take half of our budget to do that project. So, but I wanted to let you know that is part of their public benefit as a sidewalk fund contribution.
Any other questions from the board?
I know it's in here because I heard it in the planning commission meeting, outside seating. I'm not seeing it in the meeting minutes. That's happening, right? We don't have that picture in our board packet.
You don't. You did not. Unfortunately, there are no it's right here. If you look I can zoom in some more. It's that was pretty severe.
Seat 4 people.
It looks like it has seating for a handful of folks right off the south and east corner.
That's better than nothing.
Right in an enhanced garden area.
A picnic table could go over the lid for the
absolutely.
station, too.
So Sean, that's a little hard for me to see way over here. So it's in
Sure.
the outside seating's in the parking lot and the front door is where?
Is adjacent to it. It's right here.
Okay.
I can scroll down to the elevations as well, and we have their samples. I should have grabbed them. So this is let me back out just a little bit. So McDonald's is right over here. This is the east side of the site. So you will enter the building from the east side. The drive-through comes down the west side, and, it's somewhat landscaped, so it's buffered a bit. And then right here on that southeast corner is the outdoor seating.
And that will be landscaped in some way?
I don't, there's a bit of landscaping. You can wow, this keeps jumping around. you can just kind of see it around between the curb and that kind of enclosure. And then there was some discussion about the building colors, and I know that we're not dealing with the site plan today. I'm going the wrong way. No, I'm not. There. So these colors are supposed to match. You can see there's a little bit of a variation here, and we were assured that that's not intentional. I think it'll be more this color than that color, but it's going to look more or less, try to mimic, at least with colors, the Cooley Lake Road McDonald's, which has some paneling as well that you can see. That's supposed to kind of give it a, I don't want to call it a rusty look, Greg and Lou, but that's kind of that corner. Yeah. So this is the west elevation.
So does the outside seating mimic the Cooley Lake Road location as well? Or it's smaller? Because it looks smaller to me on this,
The
but.
Cooley Lake Road, and Lou, you own that store, right? We do. So that's a little bit smaller site, and let's just go down there and take a look. So this is a challenging site. I mean, it's a small building, but a challenging site. And the other one is even maybe more challenging, but it's not very clear, but I believe that's where where your outdoor seating is.
That is.
Just right off the front.
That's correct. That's Cooley Lake. That is a land lease, so we don't own all of that
You
property.
need to state your name and
Sorry.
address.
Yeah, good evening. Lou Dorch with Great Lakes Taco.
Address?
8487 Retreat Drive, Grand Blanc, 48439.
Thank you.
So these are probably similar in size, 8 to 12 seats outside.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, this color will mimic Cooley Lake, same materials, building materials and color.
Depending on where you drop the little man on the street, it's 5 years ago or it's today. But,
Hopefully not today, since there's a sandwich board sign out there.
uh-oh.
Yeah, I agree.
So you can kind of see the materials and color, they're very similar. But the outdoor, to answer the question, the outdoor seating, instead of being on the side, or, out in front like this one, it's on the side.
Yeah, the color on the rendering doesn't really do it justice. It will mimic Cooley Lake. Not quite as gold as what's appearing there on the drawing.
Any other questions from the board or comments?
Do they serve breakfast now?
If we can get the employees there, we will, but we're fighting that pretty hard. So a lot of our stores open at 9 instead of 7.
Yeah, it's a common problem right now.
It's tough.
He's hungry. He was talking about.
What's that?
Yeah, Taco Bell opens up at 7 a.m.
Oh, when they have people. Mr. O'Neill, anything else to add?
I have nothing else, unless you have any questions for me.
Okay. I do not. Mr. Roman, you had your hand
I was
up?
going to make a motion.
Make a motion, sir.
Motion to approve the planned business development agreement for Taco Bell.
I'll support that motion.
Sean, subject to the,
Recommendations of the planning commission, as well as the comments found within the staff and consultant review letters.
I will support those additional comments. Okay? Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you,
Thanks for
gentlemen.
coming
Sorry I had
away
to wait
with
so
us,
late.
Leanna.
Thank you very much.
Item J, request to approve amendment employment agreement for building official Nick Spencer. Mr. O'Neill?
Well, this is the easiest thing I have to do tonight.
Yes, it is.
Because I think it's very deserving. Let me begin by just saying that Nick began with the township in January of 2020. And, we were all getting to know Nick and his experience and background. And I think to say he's done an excellent job is understating the obvious. We've all worked with him. We all know his capabilities and his work ethic. And I'm just glad he's here because he is really kind of a breath of fresh air. He's a hardworking guy. He, works through issues and, takes things on without missing a beat. One of the things that's been added to the role of the building official more recently is the oversight of the rental housing program, which we're really still trying to get off the ground. It's quite a major undertaking, but is very important and is something that I think is going to pay dividends to this community long-term, to the neighborhoods in this community long-term by increasing the quality of, the average rental home. So that's something he's been working diligently on. What I'm asking for tonight is the reinstatement of the 4-step wage scale, which his predecessor worked under. So I would like to add back step 4, which you can see in the memo that is dated June 10th, and it's shown on the First Amendment to Nick's employment agreement. And I'd like to immediately move him to step 3. And then I'm asking for step 4, which is the top step, to be granted to him on his next work anniversary, which is January 6th of 2023. I think it is a fair and equitable proposal and in line with what other building officials that I'm familiar with and other Oakland County communities are making. If not, maybe, I think it's probably right down the middle. I'll say it that way. The other thing I've asked for in this agreement is an additional week of vacation, which is something that's been talked about by this board and something that the administration has been working toward, and in more recent contracts has awarded from the beginning. And other than that, a comp time bank for his working hours outside of just a normal day when he's occasionally required to come to ZBA meetings, planning commission meetings, dangerous building meetings, township board meetings. It allows him to flex his time out or create a comp bank of time that he can use rather than being compensated financially for it. So I think it's very fair and equitable, and I would respectfully request your support and approval for this evening.
Questions from the board? Mr. Noble.
I think this is in part what we've been trying to achieve. It's hard to find good employees. Since I've been here, I've watched Nick count basically every weekend, take a stack of work home just to keep caught up. Always on time, willing to go the extra mile, and I think we're very lucky to have him. That's all I have to say.
Did I see another hand down
Mr.
there?
Supervisor, I'm sorry, Liz, you want to?
I just have a very brief minor question. You mentioned that his predecessor worked under this. Do we have any history of why it was taken away?
I don't know. When Brent retired and Nick came in, at some point the administration decided a couple of years ago to go to a 3-step.
It was just a labor.
Maybe to reduce the cost.
It was a recommendation of a labor attorney at the time, just as a restructuring.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious.
And so we just basically put that same step back in.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, Mr. Powell.
I want to be upfront here because I'd very much like to vote on this. I have nothing personal to gain from this, but I want everyone to know that Nick Spencer is my son-in-law. And so I don't believe there's a conflict of interest, but I want to make sure the board here agrees or doesn't agree with that. And then I have a question as well, if I don't have to recuse myself.
You may recuse yourself if you like, if you feel more comfortable.
I don't care, and I don't want to recuse myself.
I don't see that you'd have to.
So
I agree.
it's not a personal gain on my part at all.
It is a personal gain.
You're not personally gaining on it, Trustee Powell, so I don't see that.
Living in
you'd
your
have to.
basement?
No, not recently. So unless the board has a concern with that, I would still vote on it.
I think it's up to you, is my understanding. I always think it's good to err on the side of caution and recuse, but it's your decision.
It's not a conflict. You shouldn't have to
So let me put it this way. I ask to recuse myself, and I'll leave it up to the board's discretion.
Well, I will take a vote to allow Mr. Powell to recuse himself by a show of hands.
We have to have a majority.
Oh, majority?
We have to have a.
There's a majority? I know, but I'm saying, but to show of hands.
For what?
What, do a regular.
To recuse, okay.
And do it like a regular.
Okay. I retract that. I will make a motion that we allow Mr. Powell to recuse himself if he so desires. All in favor?
Aye.
Was there support for your motion?
Oh,
No, nobody supported it yet. See, I'm getting.
Support.
I got support. I knew you'd support it.
getting late.
Okay, it's getting late, yeah.
Now you can
So
do your
yes
vote.
means what and no means what?
Yes means allowing him to recuse himself.
Okay, that's what I thought, okay.
Okay.
But it doesn't force him to.
Doesn't force him to, it allows him to.
Lisa,
Correct.
doesn't everyone have to vote in the affirmative on this?
If one person
If there's
says
one person who votes no, doesn't it mean he has to vote?
It does require unanimous consent.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it does, yeah. Because I've been through this before.
Back to all the above? All in favor?
Aye.
If you vote yes, if I want him to vote.
I would do a roll.
No, we're voting that
Wanna
he
do roll
may
call?
recuse himself, correct?
If he wants to.
If he wants to.
Right.
So you should vote in the positive to give him that
Correct.
option.
So we'll do a roll call vote. We'll keep it simple here. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Buggles, I'm tired. Treasurer Roman.
Sure.
Trustee, I'm tired. Voorhees.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Cole,
yes. You may recuse yourself.
Okay, I will recuse myself then.
Okay. Moving forward. Any other further questions or comments on this?
Question for clarity, he has a newer township vehicle, right? He's got one like that. The Ford Explorers, what kind of vehicle would be his purchase for his department?
We have just,
Well, he's gonna, that vehicle has been replaced, a couple of months ago, a new pickup was ordered to replace that
Okay.
Explorer, and it's just not here yet. I think it's due in September.
September 1st or late August is what they
Replaced.
said.
Yeah.
same problem. Mr. Roman.
I'm going to motion to approve the building official employment agreement as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
One abstained. Ayes have it. Request to approve fireworks permit Cedar Island Lake. That time of year again, as you all will have before you, the application for the permit. Both the chief is unavailable tonight. He had a conflict of interest, and our fire marshal is on vacation. I did receive a letter that I will read to you this afternoon. The application submitted by Jason Trudeau, Gen X Pyrotechnics, for the fireworks display scheduled for June 24th at dusk on Cedar Island has been viewed by Fire Marshal Jason Hannafin as is in compliance. It is our recommendation to approve the fireworks display with the understanding that the on-site inspection by the fire marshal is required and the operational permit will not be issued until that time. The fire marshal will coordinate the inspection with time with Gen X. Public safety issues. Fire department personnel will be on standby in the area at the time of the shoot. Law enforcement, Oakland County Marine Division will be on the lake, so no White Lake Township PD will have to be necessary. And John Holland, Fire Chief, in support.
Supervisor Cole, it was brought to my attention in the past, we did have a White Lake police officer on the barge in the past,
I don't believe it's necessary because Oakland County's going to be there.
but I think it's our lake, I think we should be there.
It's not our lake.
Not our lake.
It's, well, I call it White Lake our lake, but.
But it's a
Exactly.
public lake.
It's a public lake, but I think we should have a representative from our police department.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be units in the area. I don't, I didn't receive any concern or question from the chief. So,
I would like that, if we can get it.
Under discussion, most of the time, the barges are electronically shot and nobody's
Nobody's on
allowed
the
on
barge.
the barge.
it's not like the old days with the
Right.
flare,
Right.
you know. Those were fun days. Just didn't know when you were going to get a quick fuse.
That's right.
Yeah.
They sure
So-
wait right to the last minute, don't they?
Yeah,
It's 3 days from now.
it's Friday.
Well, we've had a few of them that have done that
Is it
before.
always right to the wire like this?
We, unfortunately, yes, we've had a few of them that have done
They
that.
always wait this late?
Mr. Roman,
I'd like to motion to approve the firework permit for Cedar Island Lake.
I have a motion. I will support that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Old business, second reading, amendment to fee ordinance number 129. Essentially, it's just an update of some of the particulars that this board has approved already in the past. There was a few little amendments to it, more of a housekeeping. This is ongoing. I even had someone ask me today about another amendment to this, so this is just ongoing. Any questions from the board?
I have a comment.
Comment?
You can convert this to a resolution. You don't have to have a fee ordinance. You could have a resolution, which is much easier to change than an ordinance, just for future discussion.
We will have that discussion. You and I will talk about that because this thing comes back like an echo, and I really would like to try to streamline it. So please put that in your little notebook there. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the amendment to the fee ordinance 129, second
Motion.
reading.
Support, looking for support? Support. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving on. Trustee comments. Andrea Voorhees.
I'll make it quick. Peer pressure from your township trustee to come to the Family Fun Day this Saturday, June 25th from 3 to 9. Happy the Clown, ice cream cones, an ice cream cart with hot dogs, the Guy Lewis Family Fun Concert, food truck and carts, a climbing wall provided by Oakland County, stuff from the Huron Clinton Metro Parks, and Sound Station is a classic rock band cover is also going to be there. I would love to see my
Where's that
fellow
at?
workers, co-workers there. It's a Saturday from 3 to 8, Holly Park. And I actually live in Judy Hawley's old home, and her son just happened to stop by. Long story short, I totally invited him to come, and he was impressed with what we've done with Holly Park.
Cool. Good.
Done, thank you.
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, Planning Commission, we're going to be meeting July 7th. I wasn't at the meeting this past Thursday, so I don't have an update. But I believe on the 7th, we're going to be discussing the project on Hill Road, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. That's it? Mr. Powell.
I wish every resident here to have a great 4th of July, safe 4th of July, and I think we all love this country, and we pray for it every day. So thank you.
Agreed. Mr. Roman.
Wow, we are gearing up to send out summer tax bills. Kind of crazy. Before we can do these bills, there's a lot of work that goes into checking our numbers, changing our millage rates from all the school districts. We require a form called an L4029 from each and every school district. It's a board-approved form that tells us which millages to charge, who to charge it to, how much to charge. So to all the school systems out there, we need these things as early as you possibly can. Mid-June is no longer acceptable, and we're still just getting these things. With the supply chain issues, it's crazy. You can't make us wait this long. Other than that, dog licenses are now delinquent, so if you haven't gotten yours, we still have them to sell, but there's a delinquent fee. And I believe Oakland County is actually going door to door now, issuing tickets if you haven't gotten your dog licensed. Yeah, there's no messing around.
Major priority.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're going door to door.
Yep.
That's all I had.
Okay, thanks for the humor there, unfortunately. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Some library updates that I want to go over. Their summer reading program is off and running. The theme is Oceans of Possibilities. So there's all different kinds of programs. It's for ages 0 to 100, so everybody's welcome to sign up. And then as we all wish Denise Stefanik, the previous library director, well as she retired last month, I just want to make sure that I'm properly introducing the new director, April Stevenson. Denise is there part-time, just as a little transition still, you might see her, but please go welcome our new library director to our community. And then lastly, I was asked by their board to go over their millage and communicate with our residents, the library millage proposal that will be on your August 2nd ballot. I'm going to read from, so there's no mistakes here, from the White Lake Township Summer 2022 newsletter that all residents received in their mail. Dear White Lake Township community, on August 2nd, 2022, White Lake Township Library will ask residents to approve a 0.5 mills to fund the library for 8 years. The proposed millage is a renewal of a previously authorized 0.42 operating millage that expired last year and a restoration of 0.08 operating mills resulting from a reduction required by the Michigan Constitution of 1963. If approved, the millage funds will allow the library to continue current services, update continually changing technology, implement homebound delivery service, and maintain our new library building. Without this millage, the library revenue will decrease by nearly 42% and impact our ability to serve the community. Library services that would be reduced or eliminated include hours of operation, the number of books, and other materials purchased, digital subscriptions, computer maintenance, events for all ages, and information assistance. You have the opportunity to help decide the future of library as we strive to provide quality library service and inspiration through information. Sincerely, Rich McClue, President, White Lake Township Library Board. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Noble.
I'd like to urge everyone with the election coming up, this August primary election, I'd urge everybody to come out and vote. We're working very hard in the clerk's office. Late hours are starting to take place, and I'd like to thank my staff for working very diligently on that, and just wish everybody coming up a safe 4th of July.
Very good. Well, I would say that our police department open house was a overwhelming success. I was just totally amazed how many people showed up. I think the floodgates opened up. I had 948 hot dogs go across my grill. Wow. And I had a good support staff trying to get them out to the people. And the cotton candy line was from here to Aaron's desk. Am I lying?
No, it was
So
huge hit.
Yeah, it was really a great showing of support for the community. So it was nice to see people get out and see everyone there, and it was a good time. With the heat out there right now, and they're anticipating this to last for a while, please check on your neighbors, especially the elderly, and anybody that may have some challenges. We just got to do it. Don't assume everybody's okay. A friendly hello over the fence or the gate is a great thing. You know, we live in a really nice community. Let's just try to be as neighborly as we can. And the other thing is be patient. It gets hotter than Hades, and that kind of deal. It's like, motor oil gets thin when it gets hot. Well, so does tempers. They get thin. So everybody just kind of take it easy and we'll all be good. We're playing air conditioner in the township hall. It's a series of what do we fix next, and we found out that a certain rooftop isn't available for about several months. September, I think it'll come in. And we're still searching for parts to fix the one that we have. So this is a perfect example that is affecting us down home. So we now have these great stand-up fans, the Bahama Breeze fans, blowing through the building department and planning department right now. So I just got to convince Sean to keep his door open and let the cool air come out of his office.
Yeah, I was upset. You told me I couldn't wear my swimsuit in the office. It was like 85.
Yeah, so.
I'll dress
so
appropriately
we
tomorrow.
continue to deal with these problems, which is why we continue to, move forward slowly, but move forward with the process of getting into a new home. Everybody, drive safe, think safe, stay safe. Good night, God bless. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Are you making the motion?
Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Very good.